Submit the following feet. I do not pray to you for physical leisure or learning, wealth or followers. I do not pray for heaven or salvation. I do not pray for any of these opulences. In whatever birth I take, wherever my karma leads me, let me sing the glories of your holy name, birth after birth. This alone is my cherished hope, my aspiration, my prayer at your lotus feet. Let causeless and uninterrupted devotion awaken within my heart and flow towards you. Let me love your lotus feet as much as I now love sense gratification. Transfer my affection from the objects of the senses to your lotus feet. In danger of success, good fortune or disaster, let me remain in equipoise, and let my affection for you increase day by day by the influence of the holy name. When whether I live as a bird or beast, in heaven or in hell, let the humble Bhakti Vinoda always cherish Bhakti in his heart of hearts.
ठाकुर ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपः कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरोन् श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश श्रीरूपं साग्रजातां सहगण रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगण ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिन् इति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिसिद्धान्त सरस्वती इति नामिने श्रीवार्षभानवी देवी दायिताय कृपाब्धये कृष्णसम्बन्धविज्ञान दायिने प्रभवे नमः माधुर्योज्ज्वल प्रेमाढ्य श्रीरूपानुगभक्तिदा श्रीगौरकरुणाशक्ति विग्रहाय नमोस्तुते नमस्ते गौरवाणी श्रीमूर्तये दीनतारिणे रूपानुग विरुद्ध अपसिद्धांत ध्वंत हारिणे नमो गौरकिशोराय साक्षात् वैराग्यमूर्तये विप्रलम्ब रसाम्बोधे पादाम्बुजाय ते नमः नमो भक्ति विनोदाय सच्चिदानंद नामिने गौरशक्ति स्वरूपाय रूपानुगवराय ते गौराविर्भाव भूमे स्वं निर्देष्टा सज्जन प्रिय वैष्णव सार्वभौम श्रीजगन्नाथाय ते नमः वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः पञ्चतत्त्वात्मकं कृष्णं भक्तरूपस्वरूपकं भक्तावतारं भक्ताख्यं नमामि भक्तशक्तिकं नमो महावदन्याय कृष्णप्रेमप्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्णचैतन्य नामिने गौरतुषे नमः हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते जयतां सुरतौ पंगुं मम मंद मतिर्गति मत्सर्वस्य पदाम्भोजो श्रीराधा मदन मोहनम् दिव्य वृंदारण्य कल्पद्रुमादो श्रीमद् रत्नागार सिंहासनस्थो श्रीमद् राधा श्रील गोविंद देवो पृष्ठालिभि सेव्यमानो स्मरामि श्रीमान सरसारंभी वंशीवटतटस्थितः कर्षण वेणु स्वनैर्गोपी गोपीनाथाय श्रेयसुनम् तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Mukam karoti vachalam panghum langhayate girim yatkripatamaham vande Shri Guru Dinataranam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram. Hare Krishna. So welcome for today's session. We are continuing our discussion on chapter 21st of Canto 3, conversation between Manu and Kardama. So yesterday we discussed about how Shonakadi Rishi, they are inquiring from Suta Goswami that please continue to narrate the discussion between Vidura and Maitreya. Because whenever two great devotees meet, then they talk of spiritual subject matter, which is very relishable to hear and which is beneficial for all living entities. In the beginning also, Sukadeva Goswami appreciated the questions of Parikshit Maharaj. You remember that first canto? Second canto. Where say Variyanthe that your questions themselves are so glorious. Because the spirit of inquiry is there within every living being. Now so much sound is coming. And if you pay attention, then they're asking only. Somebody saying, do this, don't do this, where is that, where to go? I mean, it's all wherever you go, whether the birds are chirping or the dogs are barking or the children are shouting or the ladies are fighting. It's all about inquiring. It's all about some communication is happening. But that communication is not liberating. It does not elevate one from the bodily consciousness, material platform to spiritual consciousness or a spiritual plane. But such questions as they are there in Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, they uplift one's consciousness from matter to spirit. So that is why Suta Goswami appreciated, and then Sonakadi Rishi asked the question, and then they start narrating what happened between Vidura and Maitreya. And Vidur Muni, after hearing about Varahadeva's appearance, he further inquired, how did the Swambhu Manu ruled over this entire universe? And how did he settle his children? How did he increase the population through his 2 sons and 3 daughters? So in that connection, in the later part, we discussed about it's too much of noise. Is BMS children or who is shouting? Are they doing something? Huh? From where it is coming? Is Sengad school? Huh? But they're doing something there. Sound is coming from this side. What? Oh, this sport, the Malkham and all that is happening. Okay, leave it. Let them play. Let them play. Then no. क्या करेंगे? फैन उनको चाहिए तो चला दो. जिसको चाहिए उसको चाहिए. Different sections for different devotees. At least 4 sections are there. 5. जिसको जैसा चाहिए. Whichever way you feel comfortable is fine. I think 2 का एक ही switch है. ठीक. उसका थोड़ा ये कर दो, रेगुलेटर थोड़ा स्पीड कम कर दो, so then it will be. So then they discussed about secondary creation, how Brahmaji create, and then he started with the primary creation, how the Mahatattva become agitated by Ahankara, and then in passion, the 5 element and the 5 sense perception, the 5 senses, the 5 Gyanendriyas, Karmendriyas, they're all created. And then further, Brahmaji, how in different mentalities, different states of consciousness, how he created different beings, and then what they took charge of, what they took possession of, that we discussed. And especially in that entire section, there are 8 or 9 verses devoted to how the demons, the Danavas, they took charge of the twilight, considering it as a beautiful damsel, a beautiful girl. So then there was a description of that. And then finally, Brahmaji created Swambhu Manu. So now again, Vidura will ask that question, how did Manu further, increase the progeny? So Swambhu Manu was this was a revision which happened already in the 5th chapter of this canto. And previously also in the 2nd canto, this description of creation has come. So creation, Leela, Srishti Leela also is repeated at multiple times in Srimad Bhagavatam, because again and again the conditioned soul needs to be reminded that it is not the proprietor, it is not the controller, it is not the enjoyer, right? The controllership and enjoyership mentality is based on proprietorship mentality. Right? If I think I own something, then I try to enjoy it. If I know it's not mine, then I work hard to get it. Before getting it, I can't enjoy it. So that is why Srishti Leela again and again emphasizes that the Lord expand into three Vishnu forms, and they are the one who does all the creation. Right. So by emphasizing that the conditioned living entity is not the proprietor, they try to reawaken him to this understanding that everything belongs to the Supreme Lord and the living entity is just a tiny part and parcel. For some period of time, it exists in a particular body, and that when that human form life is obtained, that is a chance to, again reconnect one to the Supreme Lord. So this is the message which is given again and again. And then now, this chapter is entitled as conversation between Manu and Kardama. So this has almost 8 sections. In the first 5 verses, Vidura is inquiring about Swayambhu Manu's dynasty, how he ruled over, what his children did, like that. And then in 6 to 12, there's a description of how Kardam Muni, on the order of Lord Brahma, performs tapasya and how the Supreme Lord appears to him, being pleased by his tapasya. And then 13 to 22, there's a description of Kardam Muni's prayers offered to the Lord. So just like when we accept a great person, we say Hare Krishna and how are you? So the way to receive a great personality or the Supreme Lord is to glorify them, to offer them prayers. So that is why when some great sage goes to some king, the king offers prayers, or when the Lord appears to give darshan, then prayers are offered to him in his glorification. And after Lord receives the prayers, text number 23 to 32, in 10 verses, the Lord speaks to Kardama. 10 verses, Kardamani speaks to Lord, and in 10 verses, Lord also reciprocates and blesses Kardamuni by fulfilling his desire. And then after that, as per Lord's prediction, the Lord leaves and Swayambhu Manu arrives there with his wife Satrupa. And further, when they're arriving, there's a description of the place where Kardamuni was performing tapasya, that is Bindu Sarovar. So 8 verses are dedicated to describe the beauty of that Bindu Sarovar lake, that hermitage of Kardamuni. Uh, Bhagavatam is quite a aesthetic, sensitive scripture. It's not like aisa hua, vaisa hua. When it comes, then they goes to detail. Oh, kaisa tha. Just like in Gajendra's section, 8th canto, right? Gajendra Moksha 8th. So practically there's one whole chapter only to describe how the Trukuta mountain were there, what were the peaks, what was there in the valleys, what are the trees, what are the plants, what are the birds, what are the flowers, what are the fruits, how are the lakes, what is happening there. It's quite aesthetic. It just takes you to the scene. You don't need any, short videos and, YouTube links. So Sukadeva Goswami is speaking from such deep meditation and such deep, you know, Trikalagya, the vision of all the three times. He just reenacting the entire scene. And if we become absorbed in carefully reading it, then we also get transported. So there's a lot of discussion on that. And after that, Kardamuni receives Swayambhu Manu, and there's a description of that. And after that, in the last section of 6 verses, Kardamuni is inquiring from Swayambhu Manu about the purpose of his coming. So this is how the chapter flows. And as per yesterday's discussion, we'll go verse by verse. Some verses we will read. Chapter is quite long and intricate. Purports are quite long, but it's very beautiful because that is Bhagavatam's main theme. Bhagavatam does not talk about much storyline, but whenever the prayers of the devotees come or reciprocation of the Lord come, that becomes highlighted. Like in Ajamila section also, Ajamila's life story is given in just a few verses. That he became very fallen, but description not given how he became fallen, what all he was doing. In other Puranas, there's a lot of description of that. Similarly, in Prahlad Maharaj section, Sukadeva Goswami just mentioned that Hiranyakashipu tried to kill Prahlad in millions of ways. But they're not elaborate description. But if you read other Puranas, Padma Purana, Narasimha Purana, then there's a lot of description about 20, 30 ways how elaborately, Hiranyakashipu tried to kill Prahlad with all different means. But Bhagavatam's main focus is how Prahlad remained faithful to the Lord, and then how Lord appeared, then how Prahlad offered prayers to the Lord. That is the main section. The rest of the storyline is just like a means to come to that section, because that is the heart of Bhagavatam, the loving relationship between the Lord and the devotees. So here Vidura is speaking. Let's all recite together. Vidura uvacha Swayambhuvasya cha manor vamsa paramasammatah kathayatam bhagavan yatra maithunendire praja.
Vidura said, the line of Swayambhava was most esteemed. O worshipful sage, I beg you, give me an account of this race whose progeny multiplied through sexual intercourse.
Maithunena edire praja. The progeny which came through sexual intercourse. Like so, as we were discussing yesterday, that Vidura was not interested in hearing the history of some person who merely engaged in sex life. But he knew that Swayambhu Manu was such a great personality that when he produced children, then these children were also very glorious. And they further, forwarded the mission of the Lord. So that is why, by hearing the history of their activities, one becomes more enlightened. This is Parama Sammataha. Parama Sammata means that the progeny created by Swayambhu Manu and his sons were approved by great authorities. Parama Sammataha. Vamshaha Parama Sammataha. In other words, sex life for creating exemplary population is acceptable to all sages and authorities of Vedic scripture. So Sadhu and Shastra, they both, accept the sex life for creating exemplary population. And Krishna also says in that Bhagavad Gita verse, Dharma viruddha bhuteshu kamosmi bhartarshava. So Vidura was not interested in any ordinary thing. Just like we talk about Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Prabhupada often quotes that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was such a strict sannyasi that he would not allow any woman to even come near and offer obeisances. They will far from a far distance, he will accept obeisances from them. And if he has to communicate any message, it never happened. He will talk only to their husbands. They will never, Mahaprabhu gave a Chaitanya class, nothing like that. So Mahaprabhu is very strict. But yet the same Mahaprabhu would delight in hearing the why? Because that Leela is not at the ordinary plane. So similarly, the ordinary sex life is condemned. It is the worst kind of material enjoyment. It's the source of all bondage. The material world is called Maithunagar. But then the same thing, when it is done by Paramasammata, by the blessings of great authorities, then the same thing becomes worthy of hearing. So that's what it said. The sex life for creating exemplary population is acceptable to all sages and authorities of Vedic scriptures. So again, the sex life is again a kind of tool or an instrument. Who uses it for what purpose? That defines whether it is condemned or whether it is appreciated. Whether it becomes against the principle of pure devotion service or whether it elevates one in the process of pure devotion service. So let's go further. I'll read the translation.
The two great sons of Swayambhu Manu, Riyavrat and Uttanapad, ruled the world, consisting of 7 islands, just according to religious principles.
Yeah. And Srila Prabhupada explains that they ruled this earth, which is divided into 7 islands. And he said the 7 islands are still current. So when you will go to 5th canto, you might have already read or heard by Pavaneshwar Prabhu that there are different things. Priyavat Maharaj, when he wrote the chariot, then he divided that whole planet Earth into 7 parts, 7 islands, which are separated by 7 kind of oceans. So whatever, Prabhupada says that 7 islands are still current. So there's no chronological history of all the Indian kings in Srimad Bhagavatam, but the deeds of the most important kings, such as Priyavrata and Uttanapad and many others like Lord Ramchandra Maharaj, which are recorded, because the activities of such pious kings are worth hearing and people benefit by studying their history. People still talk of Ramarajya now. The temple is coming in Ayodhya, so hopefully some kind of Ramarajya will come. You saw that? Some video was floated that there's some Shila is being brought from Nepal. And that's a Shaligram Shila from whom the deities of Sita, Ram, Lakshman, Hanuman will be carved. So Shaligram Shila. So, okay, go ahead.
O holy Brahmana, O sinless one, you have spoken of his daughter, known by the name Devahuti, as the wife of the sage Kardama, the lord of created beings.
Yeah, so in purport, Sri Prabhupada says that here we are talking of Swayambhu Manu, which is there in the beginning of creation. The current rule is Vyavasat Manu, because, Krishna tells in Bhagavad Gita. What is that verse? Proktavan evam manu idam vivasvatam yogam. Krishna says, no, that I gave this knowledge to sun god Vivaswan. So he's the current Manu. So that's what Srila Prabhupada said there are 14 Manus in one day of Brahma, and we are talking of Sambhu Manu. Current time is of Vivasvat Manu.
How many offspring did that great yogi beget through the princess, who was endowed with eightfold perfection in the yoga principles? Oh, please tell me this, or I am eager to hear it.
Yeah. So in the last verse, he told about Devahoti getting married to the sage Kardama. You have spoken of the daughter named Devahoti as the wife of the sage Kardama. So then how many offspring they had, and he was having. So Prabhupada said they were both very perfect. He was a mystic yogi, and he was a Mahayogi, and the wife Devoti was a Yoga Lakshana, or she was also advanced in yoga. So in purport, Srila Prabhupada talks about the 8 steps of Ashtanga Yoga. This is, what is that? Yama, Niyama, Asana, this is Pranayam, Pratyahara, and Dharana, Dhyan, and Samadhi. After self-realization, there are 8 further perfection stages which are called Yoga Siddhis, which are Anima, Laghima, Mahima, all that, 8 Siddhis. So they were both advanced in yoga practice. Mahayogi, Kardamba was a Mahayogi, and wife was Yoga Lakshana. So now it comes in. Formally, after making their lives perfect, great sages and saintly persons used to beget children. Otherwise, they strictly observe the rules and regulation of celibacy. Brahmacharya is required for perfection of self-realization and mystic power. There is no recommendation in the Vedic scriptures that one go on enjoying material sense gratification at one's whims, as one likes, and at the same time become a great meditator by paying a rascal some money. So this theme of Prabhupada condemning the false yogis and condemning their practice that they indulge in sense gratification on one hand and they try to become perfect on other is repeated. At least in 15 verses in this chapter, Prabhupada is condemning that. When you read the purport, so you might have read it already yesterday. I was preparing. So this theme comes again and again because when Prabhupada went there, this TM, TM means transcendental meditation. So this was very popular in those days when Prabhupada was preaching in 1966 onwards, after ISKCON was established. So in that era, the TM was very popular. Many of the ISKCON devotees also were into that. So they will take a handkerchief and they will put $35 in that and put it. And then the person will come and give him one mantra like Kli, Ri, Pi, something, some absurd, sound it will give. And then they have to just keep on chanting that. And they can do anything under the sun what they want to do. They can eat, drink anything, they can have illicit sex. And then just by chanting that mantra, which is a useless sound, they feel they'll become perfect. So because Prabhupada saw that happening, so whenever it comes to yoga, Prabhupada will kind of bring it. These so-called yogis, they want to do sense gratification, they want to become perfect. So he will beat them again and again. Many times it will come like that. So the real process is that sages and saintly person, before they could beget children, they will make their life perfect. Any examples when somebody went for tapasya before taking over the charge or getting married or something like that? Huh? Prachetas. Prachetas went for 1,000 years before they could become qualified to rule the kingdom and have progeny. And after 10,000 years, they got just one child. That's all. Imagine? It was not that after 10,000 years, they got 10,000 children. Right? Who else? Sons of Daksha. Daksha, Prabhupada says that although the first set of sons were preached by Narad Muni, and Daksha had that fear, the next set of sons also can be, uh, inducted in the same way or from his perspective, distracted in the same way. But still he sent. Because there was no question of, becoming a father or a king without doing tapasya, without getting proper qualification. Daksha himself, now we are reading that Daksha himself, although he was procreating, but he felt dissatisfied with the quality of his, reproduction. So he wanted to have quality children. So he himself went for. Then people pray to the Supreme Lord, Atri Muni and Anasuya, they prayed, right? Dhara and Drona, they prayed for the Lord to appear. So this getting children was not like a byproduct of passionate sex life. Getting children was the main purpose, and sex life was just the means. And for getting good children, people used to do so much austerity. Even, many brahmacharis mothers, when there's no son and there's so many daughters, sometimes even they go to all the holy places and they do different kind of vratas. I don't know whether some of your mothers might have done or you might have brothers. But if there are only girls in the family, then Indian tradition, there's a lot of pressure on the lady to have some male child. And they go around and they do this vrata, that vrata, and eat this and do this puja, and then they get a son finally like that. So, in the Vedic times, although sex life has always been a source of bondage, but that was not the highlight. It was just a part of family life. It was not that all the time a person engrossed in that. There were other things to do for both man and woman. And the duty was much above the pleasure of sex life. But in modern times, the duty concept is totally gone. There is no duty, there's no obligation. And the sex life has become so prominent that people is totally absorbed in just thinking about sex life. And because there are nuclear families, so man and woman, they're just absorbed in sexual thoughts. So it is much more increased that. But otherwise, sex life is the means, and the goal is to beget good children. There's a verse which says that one should get a wife to get a good son, so that the good son can perform the Shraddha ceremony and then deliver the forefathers. That is how it says. Because Putra, then the definition of Putra is that one who delivers his forefather from the hell named Pu. There's a hell called Pu or Pum. One who delivers Putra. Putra iti Putra, that one who delivers the forefathers from that kind of hell. That was the purpose. So one used to have, a wife to get a child so that the forefathers and everyone else in the family will be delivered. That was the main purpose. So now the concept have much changed, and the gross sexual pleasure has become the highlight for everyone. And that is why society is in such a chaotic condition. That. Okay, go ahead.
O holy sage, tell me how the worshipable Ruchi and Daksha, the son of Brahma, generated children after securing as their wives and other two daughters of Sambhu Manu.
Yeah, so Prabhupada said that all the great personalities in the beginning, those who increased population, were called Prajapatis. So Brahma is known as Prajapati. And some of his sons, like Swambhu Manu, Daksha, they are also known as Prajapati. So Swambhu Manu had three daughters. Mother Devahuti got married to Kardam Muni, and Akuti and Prasuti. So Akuti got married to Prajapati Ruchi, and Prasuti got married to Daksha. So they produced children which in turn filled the entire universe. So that will be discussed further in the fourth canto about Prajapati, Ruchi, and Akuti, and Daksha and Prasuti. And then the Sati episode will come later. So he's asking, how did they begot children in the beginning? How did they begot the population? Maitreya Uvacha Prajaha Srajeti Bhagavan Kardamo Brahmano Ditaha Saraswatyam Tapastepe Sahasranam Samadasha.
The great sage Maitreya replied, commanded by Lord Brahma to beget children in the worlds, the worshipable Kardama Muni practiced penance on the bank of the river Saraswati for a period of 10,000 years.
Yeah. So again, Prabhupada brings the concept of yoga. The saying that he performed tapasya for 10,000 years. Valmiki Muni performed for 60,000 years. So the age was, much longer in those days, and that's why they could perform tapasya and attain perfection. And following the regulation, controlling the senses, practicing the different sitting postures are merely the preliminary practices. We do not know how people can be captivated by the bogus yoga system, in which it is stated that simply by meditating 15 minutes daily, one can attain the perfection of becoming one with God. So this is the age of bluffing and quarrel, and there's no possibility of attaining yoga perfection through such paltry proposals. And the only thing which works, the Vedic literature, kalau nastev 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 gatir anyatha, that is the process of no other alternative than the Hare Nam, Hare Nam, Hare Nam eva kevalam. Okay, read the next one.
During that period of penance, the sage Kardama, by worship through devotional service in trance, propitiated the personality of Godhead, who is the quick bestower of all blessings upon those flew to him for protection.
Yeah. So although Kardam Muni was doing yoga, Stang yoga practice, he was doing that was the practice of the age. But actually, it was along with devotional service. It was not just yoga without bhakti. It was either yoga mishrit bhakti or along with yoga he was doing bhakti. And that is why I say that by worship during that period of penance of 10,000 years, the sage Kardam by worship through devotion service and trance. That means he was doing. He was sitting, posture, controlling mind and senses. But the purpose of all of that was to please the Lord. That is the element of bhakti. And that is why he pleased the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is a quick bestower of all blessing upon those who come to him for protection. So Prabhupada elaborates on that point that this meditation was not a dry meditation on some light or flame or point or something like that. This was a personal service to the Supreme Lord rendered through that. There's not much of addition that how it was done, whether it was done by making a deity form or something. At one place, Prabhupada will say that whether one meditate on the deity or serves a deity form, that is both good. So that is not mentioned, but definitely he understood the personal feature of the Lord and he wanted to personally serve and please the Lord. He was not an impersonalist. He was not meditating on Brahma Jyoti or anything like that. He was trying to please the personal form of the Lord. So Kardam Muni practiced yoga meditation for 10,000 years just to please the Supreme Lord. So therefore, whether one practices yoga or speculates and does research to find God, one's effort must be mixed with the process of devotion. Without devotion, nothing can be perfect. Actually, this karma, yoga, jnana, they cannot give their result without the mercy of Bhakti Devi. Some amount of bhakti, some element of bhakti has to be there to attain success in any field, because that Bhakti Devi is the one who bestows actual benediction. Otherwise, the process is not effective. And then he quotes about the 6th chapter. It is clearly said that one who is constantly engaged in Krishna consciousness is the topmost yogi. What is the verse? Yoginam api sarvesham tat gaten tat gaten atmana shraddhavan bhajate yoma same yukta tamo mata. And then it says the person of Godhead also fulfill the desire of a surrender devotee. One has to surrender unto the lotus feet of the personality of Godhead in order to achieve real success. Devotion service is the direct method. Other methods, although recommended, are indirect. And in this age, Kali, because people are short living, intelligence is poor, their poverty is stricken, and embarrassed by so many miserable disturbances, Lord Chaitanya therefore has given the greatest boon. In this age, one simply has to chant the holy name of God to attain perfection in spiritual life. So what is that verse being quoted here for the stage of Kali Yuga, these 4 qualities? Prayana alpayashu sabya jane kalau ismin janina. Manda, sumanda, matayo, manda bhagyahi patrita. So that is the verse being quoted here. And then the word some prapade Hari means that in various ways Kardamuni satisfied the Supreme Personality of Godhead Hari by his devotion service. It is also expressed by the word Kriya Yogena. He not only meditated but also engaged in devotional service. So devotional service means the 9-fold devotional processes of hearing, chanting, remembering, etc. Remembering is meditation also. But who is to be remembered? Lord is to be remembered. So that is how he performed devotion service. It was not so much of Archanam or something, but it was more of Shravanam Kirtanam also, what he did not mention, but Smaranam definitely he did, because Smaranam does not need any external support for that. So one should remember the Lord. Not only one should remember, one must hear about the activities of Lord, chant his glories. So after engaging 10,000 years in performing different types of devotion service, Kardamuni attained perfection of meditation. But it is not possible in Kali Yuga. So who will be successful in the rigid performance of the many yoga rules and regulations? And then he says perfection attained only by those who are surrendered souls, where there is no mention of the personality of Godhead, where is their surrender? And when there is no meditation upon the personality of Godhead, where is the yoga practice? So Prabhupada is quite heavy and challenging, sarcastic in these purports. The challenge, because people were really getting cheated, and somebody who knows the right path, when he sees somebody getting cheated, then he feels more compassion and kindness. For us, we ourselves are wondering where we are, what we are doing many times. So we jo kar raha hai, sab karne do. But when a pure soul, who are descended from the spiritual world, when he sees people getting misguided and going in the wrong direction, they feel great pain, right? So that is why Prabhupada is very strong against it. Thus, the Supreme Personality of Godhead sends great cheaters and who mislead them because people want to get cheated. And the rascals of self-made authority being taught by illegally collected money. They are very proud of the money they have plundered from innocent persons who want to be cheated. So that is the theme, that is the context. Because when Prabhupada came to know that charging $35 for giving some stupid mantra, so-called mantra, and hundreds and thousands of hippies and other people were getting into that. So Prabhupada felt very, you know, uh, greatly compassionate toward them, and that's why he wrote this part. But he tells also in this lecture, also, nobody can perform yoga in this age. And he will quote, Arjuna rejected it so many thousands of years back. So if Arjuna rejected it, then what is our qualification? Are we more qualified than Arjuna that we will be able to do something what Arjuna could not do? Like that, he would say. Okay. Tavat prasanno Bhagavan Pushkaraksha Krite Yuge Darshayam Asatam Shatta Sabdam Brahma Dadat Vapuhu.
Then in the Satya Yuga, the lotus-eyed Supreme Personality of Godhead, being pleased, showed himself to the Kardama Muni and displayed his transcendental form, which can be understood only through the Vedas.
Shabda Brahma. So that form is also made up of, Vedic sound vibration, it says. So Prabhupada says 2 points. That is by yoga practice, when people are living for 1000 years, then Kardama Muni attained by success by yoga practice, when Lord was pleased with him. And second thing is that Lord showed him the form which was not imaginary. Sometimes impersonalists say that one can arbitrarily concentrate one's mind on some form, he imagines or which pleases him. But here it is very clearly said that the form which the Lord showed to Kardama Muni by his divine graces, described in the Vedic literature. So that was the form he saw. Now there's a description of that form. Satam virajam arkabham sita padmod parasrajam snigdha neelalaka vrata vaktrabjam virajombaram.
Kardama Muni saw the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is free from material contamination. In his eternal form, effulgent like the sun, wearing a garland of white lotuses and water lilies. The Lord was clad in spotless yellow silk, and his lotus face was fringed with slick dark locks of curly hair.
So yesterday we were discussing about how Srimad Bhagavatam at multiple places describes the beauty of a woman also. Whether it is Mohini Murti, is quite elaborate, or whether it is that Apsara who came to Agnidhara, what is the name? Pramalocha or something. Or whether it is like yesterday we read about, the twilight in the form of woman. It's very elaborate. But more elaborate description is of the form of the Lord. Every time the Lord appears, Sukadeva Goswami or Sutta Goswami, they go in trance and describe the entire form. They don't say, "Woi, jo pehle bola tha na, वही वैसे Vishnu hai." Sometime in our timetable, in the same period is there, you used to write ditto, do. पहले copy कर दो यार. Nowadays we do copy paste, or we say as described earlier, refer to this section. But no, Samudra Manthan is going on in the 8th canto description. So much is happening that he must, so it's all on fire, everything is happening. But Lord is appearing multiple times, but every time he'll appear, there will be some verses for glorification and some elaborate description, what he was holding in his hands. And every time he will wear costume jewel, he will have that streak of white hair, and he will have Makara Kundal. Everything will be there, but then again and again it will come. Because that is in trance. It is not a mechanical arrangement. It is not that we are reading Bhagavatam to obtain something. We are reading Bhagavatam to relish it. That's a relishment. And they are speaking Bhagavatam in a mood of relish. So it is not a mechanical subject matter where, ditto and do as it is and, refer this. No, it's a relishment. And, Prabhupada, yesterday we are reading the purport how somebody is actually at a transcendental plane relishes these things. And somebody is not at a transcendental plane, by repeatedly hearing these things, then he will come at a transcendental plane and relish these things. So here is the description of the form of the Lord. He is free from material contamination, effulgent like sun, wearing a garland of white lotus and water lilies. In spotless yellow silk pitamar he was, clad. And lotus face was fringed with slick dark locks of curly hair. Okay. Kiritinam kundalinam shankha chakra gadadharam Svetolpal krinankam manasparsa smritekshanam.
Adorned with a crown and earrings, he held his characteristic conch, disc, and mace in three of his hands, and a white lily in the fourth. He glanced about in a happy, smiling mood, whose sight captivates the heart of all devotees.
Yeah. His sight captivated the heart of all the devotees. There's a verse in Gopi Geetam also. Somebody remember that? Madhuraya gira Palguvakya. No, not. Uh, where it says that the smile of the Lord, it humbles the devotee. It shatters the pride in the heart of his devotees. That is the verse in Gopi Geetam. It comes like that. So his sight
Dom-
captivates the heart of his.
Nijajana smaya dhamsana smita.
Nija Jana Ismaya, Dhamsana Ismaya, that light smile. But here there is a unique thing you can find. What is the unique thing in this description?
Lily.
Lily. When one hand is having a lily. So lotus is, opens in the presence of sun, and lily opens in the presence of moon. So there was a white lily, just for amusement. It is written by Srila Vishwanath Thakur. Just for amusement, he has lily in place of lotus. Generally, we say, na, Sankha Chakra Gada Padma. Sankha Chakra Gada lily. I don't know what is called lily. What is lily here? Sweta Utpala. Utpala is lily, and Kamala is lotus. And he glanced in happy. Now, the last verse. Vinyasta bhojam amsadeshe garutmatah दृष्ट्वा खेव स्थितं वक्षः श्रियं कौस्तुभकन्धरम्.
A golden streak on his chest, the famous Kaustubh gem, suspended from his neck. He stood in the air with his lotus feet placed on the shoulders of Garuda.
Yeah, and Prabhupada, taking all these three verses again and again, establishes that this is the description of the eternal transcendental form of the Lord. They are not the imagination of Kardamuni. The decorations are beyond material conception, as admitted even by Shankaracharya. The varieties of the transcendental Lord, his body, form, dress, are not manufactured by the material energy, but are all confirmed in the Vedic literature. There was no point in seeing an imagined God after the perfection of yoga does not terminate in voidness or impersonalism. Rather, one actually sees the personality of Godhead in his eternal form. Anugrahaya Bhaktanam Anurupena. Yesterday we were discussing that the Lord manifests himself in the form in which he is worshipped. The process of Krishna consciousness is to deliver the form of Krishna directly, and this form is described in Brahma Samhita. What is the verse being quoted? Chinta mani prakara satma sukalpa vriksho laksha vratesu surabhira vipalayantam Lakshmi sahasra sadasam brahma sevyamana govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. So these descriptions are authoritative, and a Krishna conscious person takes them directly, acts on them, preaches them, and practices devotion service as enjoined in the authoritative scripture. So now, as he has seen, now Karda Muni, after seeing his response, is being described in this verse. I'll read the translation.
When Karda Muni actually realized the Supreme Personality of Godhead in person, he was greatly satisfied because his transcendental desire was fulfilled. He fell on the ground with his head bowed to offer obeisances unto the lotus feet of the Lord. His heart naturally full of love of God. With folded hand, he satisfied the Lord with prayers.
So this is the typical response. When the Lord appears, then the devotee becomes overwhelmed with affection. He may undergo the Ashtasattvic Vikar, and then he pays obeisances, and then he offers prayers. Whenever Lord appears, whether it is to Dhruv Maharaj or whether it is to Prahlad Maharaj, or any form Lord appears to any devotee, this is a standard process, natural way of responding to the Lord's presence. And Srila Prabhupada again, takes very strongly about the Patanjali yoga system, and that's a long purport. But in essence, Prabhupada is establishing that the Patanjali yoga system talks of Atma and Paramatma. Patanjali yoga system is a tool for realizing the personal form of the Lord. The people who talk of Patanjali yoga system on the basis of Patanjali yoga system as a impersonal conception, they are actually mistaken. They're actually cheating. Patanjali very clearly talks of Atma and Paramatma. And the means for the Atma to realize and meditate on Paramatma, not to become one with it, but to realize that relationship and connection is the way is given Ashtanga Yoga in that age, in that Satyuga that is given. So that whole purport Prabhupada becomes quite heavy. And, he says, uh, Patanjali Yoga system is called Ashtanga Yoga. Sometimes impersonalists pollute the Patanjali Yoga system because they are monist. So they pollute it. Patanjali describes that the soul is transcendently pleased when he meets the supersoul and sees him. So if the existence of the supersoul and the individual is admitted, then the impersonal theory of monism is nullified. So they have the impersonalist and void philosopher twist the Patanjali system in their own way and pollute the whole yoga process. So, and then he talks about aspiration of people to attain dharma, artha, kam, and moksha. And then he talks about Kaivalya. People think the Kaivalya means to become one with the Supreme Lord, but actually, the oneness of understanding that the Supreme Lord is fully spiritual and that in full spiritual realization one can understand what he is called Kaivalya in the language of Patanjali, realization of spiritual power. His proposal is that when one is free from material desires and fixed in spiritual realization of the self and the super self, that is called Chit Shakti. And in that full spiritual realization, there is perception of spiritual happiness. Brahma Saukhyam tu Ananta. So he elaborates on the Patanjali's yoga system and how it is a very personal system, but it has been twisted and misinterpreted by the monist and the impersonalist. The ultimate goal of yoga's practice is described here. Kardamuni saw the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his eternal form. Devotional service begins with the relationship of the individual soul and the Supreme Soul, or Krishna and Krishna's devotees, and when one attains it, there is no question of falling down. So, and then he says, material enjoyment as encouraged by the bogus yogis has nothing to do with the transcendental realization of spiritual happiness. Real devotees of Bhakti Yoga accept only the material necessities of life absolutely needed to maintain the body and soul together. They refrain completely from all exaggerated material sense gratification. They are all prepared to undergo all kinds of tribulations, provided they can make progress in the realization of the personality of Godhead. So material enjoyment and spiritual advancement go ill together. They both can't be together. One requires material endeavor, material consciousness, another is totally different. And that is why Prabhupada says that serious practitioners, real devotees, they only accept the material necessities of life, which are absolutely necessary. As Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu directs Srila Raghunath Das Goswami, that, he says, no? Grame varta na kahibe, grame varta na shunibe, bhala na khaibe or bhala na paibe. And before that he says, Jivera lalasa ye iti iti dhaya, sishno udar parayana, Krishna nahi paye. So Mahaprabhu is very clear. Although there was at times there were feast and everything else, but otherwise the life was very centered on the focus of attaining Krishna through the process of hearing and chanting in the association of devotees. And if we see the way ISKCON is, directed by Srila Prabhupada, that the process is to attain Krishna, right from the morning Mangalarti and then all the process, chanting. And then there is Prasadam, there is feast, definitely. But the goal remains to make a spiritual advancement. So that is why Prabhupada emphasizes that they refrain completely from all exaggerated material sense gratification. And they're prepared to undergo all kind of tribulation to make a spiritual progress. So now, Kardam Muni will offer beautiful prayers. 10 prayers he will be offering. And in summary, he will glorify the Lord and his appearance. And he will say it is so rare. And he said that still out of mercy he have appeared to me. And he says that the feet of the Lord should be worshipped for spiritual realization. But the Krapanas, the selfish-minded people, they worship the Lord for getting material benefit. And then he says that I am also one among them because I am also worshipping you for getting a good wife. to fulfill the instruction of my father. And please grant me that. And then Lord will further ask, why don't you act like Kumaras and all. So let's get into that. We will have a break after reading these prayers. Section we can complete. Right. Okay. ऋषिर उवाच जुष्टं बताद्याखिल सत्वराशे संसिद्ध्यमक्ष्णोस्तव दर्शनं न यद्दर्शनं जन्मभिरिद्य सद्भिः आशा सते योगिनो रूढयोगाः.
The great sage Kardama said, O supreme worshipable Lord, my power of sight is now fulfilled, having attained the greatest perfection of the sight of you, who are the reservoir of all existence. Through many successive births of deep meditation, advanced yogis aspire to see your transcendental form.
Yeah. So Lord is the reservoir of all goodness and all pleasure. Without goodness, one cannot experience real pleasure, even materially, because that sukham and jnanam, they are the characteristic of mode of goodness. So people are making the life more passionate and ignorant, and they want to experience some kind of happiness. So that will not come. And the passion's characteristic is that it appears very pleasing in the beginning, but it becomes very poisonous, very disturbing at the end. So passionate pleasures, they appear to be pleasing. For example, drinking, smoking, illicit sex. They appear to be quick and very easily available to please someone. But actually they begin like that. But ultimately everything ends up in misery. Whether it is any kind of passionate pleasure, it has no sustainability. On the other hand, if somebody is in goodness, then somebody is in goodness, he likes some classical things and all this. Sukham Jnanam, if he remains in goodness, he can experience to some degree. So unless one is situated in the mode of goodness, there is no real pleasure. So that goodness wala pleasure is also short-lived. But here there's a talk of transcendental pleasure, which is there in connection with the Lord. Kardamuni says, Prabhupada is paraphrasing, your Lordship is the reservoir of all that can be understood by the nomenclature of goodness, and by experiencing you face to face, eye to eye, the perfection of sight has now been attained. The perfection of senses is to engage in the service of the Lord. And sight should be engaged in seeing the beauty of the Lord, hearing should be engaged in hearing the glories of the Lord, and taste and for eating prasadam. That sloka is there by Ambarish Maharaj. What is that? About Ambarish Maharaj, how he engaged all the senses in the service of the Lord. How it starts? Savai mana Krishna pada arvindayo, vacham sivaikunda gunanu varnani, karo harer mandir marjana. Everything is said, all the different senses, how they are engaged in that. So, along with senses, if the mind is not engaged, if the activity is mechanical, then once, like stability in devotional service will be very short-lived. That's why the beginning says, Savai manah Krishna padarvindya. First you engage your mind. Krishna also says, Man mana bhav mad bhakto. Then Madhyaji mam namaskar. So the real challenge which we all face as practicing devotees is that we may engage in the activities of devotional service, but the mind may still be either having wrong desires and wrong intentions, or maybe completely absent also in that. It may be just mechanical. So that is why the experience of pure bhakti is not, obtained. And that is why even practicing devotional service, devotee may have some symptoms of dissatisfaction, some kind of concern, some kind of experience of misery, because still that subtle change has not happened. That bhakti, Rishikena, Rishikesh. So when there is a feeling, there is a want, there is a need for one's own happiness, then to that degree, even after spending many, many years and decades in Krishna consciousness, one will still experience some kind of dissatisfaction and misery. But to the degree one become focused that, okay, I'm here to please the Lord, okay. My health is good, I'll please the Lord. My health is not good, I'll still please the Lord. Life is okay. Friend, relatives, family members are all okay, let me please the Lord. They're not all okay, still let me please the Lord. Because what matters in this world is whether Lord is pleased or not. It is not that whether I am situated happily or not. So this is a very subtle thing. Even after coming to Krishna consciousness, all kind of dissatisfaction, all kind of frustration is experienced because that goal has not got shifted. Either one looks for one's own happiness or one looks that I'm the doer, right? So if I fail something in doing some project or something, then I feel great dissatisfaction. But I tried my best. Not successful. Okay, next time I'll try. What's the problem? Let us let us relish somebody else's success because Lord is pleased. Lord should be pleased. If somebody else is pleasing Lord better than us, then we derive pleasure from His service also. Because ultimately our goal is that Lord should be pleased. Not that I alone should please the Lord, others should displease. Not that is not the goal. Whoever can best please the Lord, let him please the Lord. If Lord is pleased, I am happy. And I'm also trying for the same, but I may fail in that. But ultimately, somebody else becomes successful in pleasing the Lord. So by seeing Lord's happiness, I become happy. Then for such a person, actually, he becomes above the material modes of nature. If one becomes focused on Krishna's pleasure, Guru's pleasure in all situations. So there are subtleties in that, but here is mentioned that the perfection of senses is when the senses engage in relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One's perfection is technically called Bhakti Yoga, which entails detachment of the senses from material indulgence and attaching them to the service of the Lord. When one is freed from all designated conditioned life and fully engages in the service of the Lord, one service is called Bhakti Yoga. What is the verse? Definition. Sarvapadi vinirmuktam tat paratvena nirmalam rishikena rishikesha seva. Sarvapadi vinirmuktam. All upadis have to go. So Kardam Muni admits that seeing the Lord personally in Bhakti Yoga is the perfection of sight. So exalted perfection of seeing the Lord is not exaggerated by Kardam Muni. He gives evidence that those who are actually elevated in yoga aspire in life after life to see this form. Not a fictitious yogi. Those who are actually on the path aspire only to see the eternal forms of Supreme Lord. Okay. Ye mayate hatamed sastvat padarvindam bhavasindupotam upasate kamalayaya tesham rashisha kaman niraye piyesu.
Your lotus feet are the true vessels to take one across the ocean of mundane nations. Only person deprived of their intelligence by the spell of the deluding energy will worship those feet with a view to attain the trial of a momentary travel and momentary pleasure of the senses, which even person rotting in hell can attain. However, O my Lord, you are so kind that you bestow mercy even upon them.
Yeah, very striking word. So this your lotus feet are the true vessel to take one across the ocean of mundane nations. So demigods in the 10th canto in that Garbha Stuti prayers also, they also compare the lotus feet of the Lord with the boat by which one can be carried across the material existence. And so this is the purpose of serving the lotus feet, but only person deprived of their intelligence. Hatha, Prabhupada says, Hatha Medasa. Hatha Medasa means those whose brains are spoiled. Medasa means intelligence, Hatha means destroyed. So those whose intelligence is destroyed. Hatha Medasa. They worship these same feet with a view to attain the trivial and momentary pleasure of the senses, which even the person rotting in hell can attain. Same thing, what is there? Rishabdev's sloka, first one, 5.5.1. Nayam deho de bhajamna loke kashtan gaman arati vidbhujami. This is there for vidbhujami also, for dogs, cats, hawks, everyone it is available. In hell also, after suffering, person will be conditioned to suffering. In hell also, a person desires sense gratification. In hell also, he experiences some kind of pleasure. So still, one who approaches the Lord, even with material desire, Lord fulfills such desires. So Vishnu Jagadhi Thakur gives an interesting commentary here. We will see that. So Prabhupada takes that approach that hog also eats, sleep, enjoys sex life to the fullest extent. And then he come to the modern yogis advise that because one has senses, one must enjoy to the fullest extent like cats and dogs. This is condemned here by Kardam Muni. He says such mental pleasures are available for cats and dogs in a hellish condition. The Lord is so kind that if so-called yogis are satisfied by hellish pleasure, he can give them facility to attain all the mental pleasure they desire, but they cannot attain the perfection stage attained by Kardam Muni. And again he says that hellish and demonic person do not actually know what is the ultimate perfection, attainment in perfection. Therefore, they think sense gratification is the highest goal of life, and they advise like that. Such person are hat medasa. Their intelligence is spoiled. So, Kardam Muni says those who aspire after material enjoyment by practice of yoga has spoiled their brain substance and is fool number one. Intelligent practice of yoga should aspire for nothing else but to cross over the ocean of nations by worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead and see the lotus feet. So, Lord is so kind, however, that even today's persons whose brain is substance spoiled are given the benediction to become cats, dogs, or hogs and enjoy material happiness from sex life and sense gratification. Ye yathamam prapadyante tam se bhajan. So, Vishwan Chakravarti Thakur makes a special comment in that section. He says that material happiness, sense gratification often leads to hell. But when the material enjoyment is obtained by the mercy of the Lord, that means one prays to the Lord and obtains that, then because it is provided by the Lord, then such material enjoyment does not lead one to hell. So Prabhupada will also quote further, Akama sarva kamova moksha kamodariti. So there's a distinction that if a person approaches the Supreme Lord, even for material enjoyment, then his quality of enjoyment is different than a person who never approaches the Lord or approaches the demigod. Kama says that Hritajnana, Prapadyante Anna Devata. Like Krishna says, they are Hritajnana. But he does not tell them Hritajnana in this word. Akama sarva kamova moksha kamodariti tivrena bhakti yogana yajayate puruse param. So bhakti is so glorious that even if a person starts with material motives to obtain something material, still one gets gradually purified. And that verse will come, that how the Lord fulfills the material desire of the devotee in such a way that devotee becomes freed from it. He does not pursue it. On the other hand, such effect is not pursued when the material desires are fulfilled by the demigods. So this is a special remark. तथा स चाहं परिवोधु कामः समानशीला ग्रहमेदधेनुम् उप्येयमूलानशेषमूलं दुराशय काम तुगानग्रिप्सया.
Therefore, desiring to marry a girl of like disposition, who may prove to be a veritable cow of plenty in my married life, to satisfy my lustful desire, I too have sought the shelter of your lotus feet, which are the source of everything. For you are like a desired tree.
So Prabhupada also writes in the line of Srila Vishwanath Thakur. In spite of his condemning persons who approach the Lord for material advantages, because material advantages are available even for people going to hell, Kardamuni expressed his material inability. He says, I know, but I have not yet experienced or realized it. I know it, but I am materially unable to live by this standard. And desire before the Lord by saying, although I know that nothing material should be asked from you, I nevertheless desire to marry a girl of like disposition. So Prabhupada first comments on like disposition. He says, this like disposition is very significant. Previously, the parents used to search for like dispositions, like natures. And in the gunas also, Guna and Rashi, and the horoscope matches there. So then there is a combination, okay, common good. And there is a Swabhava. Somebody is a Deva, somebody is a Rakshasa. So that should match. Otherwise, the girl is of one nature and the boy is of another nature, then it will not be a very suitable match. So not more than 25 years ago, perhaps it is still current. Parents in India used to consult the horoscope of the boy and girl to see whether they do factual union in their psychological condition. So he talks about that. Otherwise, there is divorce and separation. And why Kardamani wanted to have a wife of like disposition? Because it is necessary to assist in spiritual and material advancement. It is said that a wife yields the fulfillment of dharma, artha, and kam. If one has a nice wife, he is to be considered a most fortunate man. In astrology, a man is considered fortunate who has great wealth, good sons, or very good wife. Of these three, in terms of having wealth, good sons, and good wife, one who has a very good wife is considered the most fortunate. Three kinds of fortunate people. The most fortunate is one who has a good wife. And before marrying, one should select a wife of like disposition. One should not be enamored by so-called beauty or other attractive feature for sense gratification. Although in Kali Yuga, it is mentioned marriage is based on consideration of sex life. So then now he comes. Kardamani could have asked this benediction from Uma, right? Because Uma is wife of Lord Shiva, and she has been empowered to be the matchmaking match, what is it? Marriage bureau in church kind of thing. If somebody wants a match, then she can recommend somebody good. But he preferred to worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead because it recommended in Bhagavatam that everyone, whether is full of desires or no material desire, should worship the Supreme Lord. So, of these three classes of man, one tries to be happy by fulfilling material desires, one to be happy by becoming one with the Supreme, another, the perfect man, is a devotee. He does not want anything in return from the Personality of Godhead. He only wants to render transcendental loving service. In any case, everyone should worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead, for he will fulfill everyone's desire. The advantage of worshipping the Supreme Person is that even if he has desire for material enjoyment, if you worship Krishna, he will gradually become a pure devotee and have no material hankering. So Vishnu Jagadish Thakur writes that Lord tells that, okay, then you know that, so why do you want to have a wife? He says, no, I am not like my brothers like Kumaras, who could transcend that. I am obliged to fulfill the desire of Lord Brahma. And I am like, he says, Kama Dhemanum. So Kama Dhemanum means that's like the cow gives milk. So here Vishnu Jagadish Thakur writes that Graha Med Dhenum. Dhenum means give me a cow. Right? But then cow means he is comparing himself to a bull. Because bull is Sayeva Gokhara we mentioned. So bull is like very passionate kind of personality. So he's comparing himself like an animal. So he mentions about that. And Kama Dugangri Pasya. So he asked for a wife who can assist him in fulfilling the purpose of Dharma, Artha and Kam. So further it goes. Prajapateste vachasa dishatantya loka khilayam kam haitonu aham cha loka anugato vahami balim cha shrucha nimisham tobhyam.
O my Lord, you are the master and leader of all living entities. Under your direction, all conditioned souls, as if bound by rope, are constantly engaged in satisfying their desires. Following them, O embodiment of religion, I also bear oblations for you, who are eternal time.
So first Srila Prabhupada talks about Lord being the leader of all living entities. Nityo Nityana Chetanas Chetana Eko Bahunam Yo Vidudhati Kaman. So he quotes that verse in Katha Upanishad that the Lord is the leader of all living entities. He is the sustainer and awarder of the necessities. So one should enjoy life under the direction of the Supreme Leader, the personality of Godhead. So Lord binds everyone through the scriptural injunction. And that is why Lord is very heavy when somebody breaches the codes of scriptural injunction. Ye Shastra Vidyam Usrijya Vartate Kam Karana. Na tu siddhim avapnoti, na sukham na paramgati. Everything destroyed. So Lord's control comes in the form of Shastra. That is why technically we say Vedana manilo bodha hoilo Nastik. Astik and Nastik is based on the faith and acceptance of the Vedic literature, not about faith in God directly. Because how do you get knowledge of God? Knowledge of God comes from the Vedic literature. And then further, Prabhupada says, quoting from Vishnu Thakur, a question may be raised, since Kardamuni was advanced in spiritual life, why then he did not ask the Lord for liberation? Why did he want to enjoy material life in spite of his personally seeing and experiencing the Supreme Lord? We may also wonder, no? We are all trying. If we have only one darshan of the Supreme Lord, then all material desires will evaporate. Why it did not happen for Kardamuni? Answer is, not everyone is competent to be liberated from material bondage. Many people can have darshan of the Lord. Darshan of the Lord and liberation is not instant and automatic. Right? Many people have. Who all have darshan of the Lord in Vedic literature? We find in different kathas. Who saw the Lord? Dhurmara saw the Lord. His material desires got evaporated. Who else? Who else saw the Lord, but he did not get transformed? Daksha saw the Lord. Then next, now the section is going on. Daksha saw the Lord. He did not get transformed. Huh? Indra sees the Lord. He sees Vamandev. Right? Hiranyakashipu saw Narasimhadev. Ravana saw Lord Ramchandra. Shishupal saw Krishna. Duryodhana saw Krishna. But seeing and then getting freed from material desire is not automatic. That is only through Yasya Prasadat Bhagavad Prasad. Directly doesn't come. Only when one practices under the guidance of the bona fide spiritual master, by his mercy, it becomes possible that one becomes freed from material desire. Otherwise, not. So, the answer is that not everyone is competent to be liberated from material bondage. It is therefore everyone's duty to enjoy according to his present position under the direction of the Lord or the Vedas. Vedas are considered to be the direct words of the Lord, and Lord gives the opportunity to enjoy material life as we want. At the same time, He gives direction for the modes and process of abiding by the Vedas, so that gradually one may be elevated to liberate from material bondage. So the best course is to abide by the Vedic rule that will help one to be gradually elevated to liberation. And Kardamuni addresses the Lord as Sukla, the leader of religion. So one who is pious should follow the rules of religion, for such rules are prescribed by the Lord himself. One should not manufacture or concoct. One should live a life of piety, follow the religious rules and regulation, marry and live peacefully for elevation to the higher status of spiritual realization. So it is not much, defined one should be in which ashram. The purpose of all the varnashram dharma is to please the Supreme Lord. That is being highlighted. Yeah. So if, as per one's guna karma, wherever one can should be happily situated without disturbance to practice Krishna consciousness, that is the position one can choose. So now, 12, I think we'll take a break because it's further long and it will become 12:20 or something. Okay, so we're meeting again at 12:15, 15 minutes break. Right. We're going to stop the recording also. Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So just see a brief thing from Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary also a little bit on this section. So, Kardamuni prays, my Lord, today my eyes have become successful in seeing you, the form for all beings, whom the most exalted sages practicing yoga for many births pray to see. Whatever previous perfection was there for the eyes was not perfection for eyes. The perfection is to see your form. So then he says, people worship you, or rather, you bestow material benediction on persons bewildered by your Maya who worship your lotus feet, the boat to cross over the material world for a particle of material pleasure which will lead them to hell. So, those who have lost intelligence because of your Maya, only those and no others worship you to attain just a particle of pleasure. But you give them those pleasures profusely, though you are reluctant. If you did not do so, they, not knowing the happiness of Bhakti, would quickly give up devotion to you. So what it means is that in the beginning, even on the path of Bhakti, people may desire some material happiness. Like you've seen, like if people are practicing chanting Hare Krishna and they get good grades in the college, the people feel encouraged. They kaam karta hai, acha. Actually, good grade, bad grade, passing, failing is very different than Bhakti. But they feel encouraged. घर वाले बेटा अच्छा है क्या करते हो अच्छा जब करने से नंबर आता है तो चलो करो, right? And like that, somebody was having some disease and he started chanting Hare Krishna, coming to temple, and he started feeling better. काम करता है, So because there are material aspirations even in a neophyte devotee, So Lord sometimes fulfill them because they don't have an idea of the happiness of bhakti. They don't have an idea of how much happiness there in giving happiness to Krishna. Right now they are thinking of their happiness, material means or by spiritual means. The goal is my happiness. So Lord also says, ठीक है बाबा ले लो, क्योंकि अगर नहीं मिलेगा इस time में, तो you will leave me and you will go somewhere else to search that happiness. If you did not do so, they not knowing the happiness of bhakti would quickly give up devotion to you. You do so, hoping that by not giving up bhakti for some time, they will lose those desires. Fulfilling those desires is not your final intention, since those desires for son, wife, family, and wealth will lead them to hellish birth. But there is a rule that karma lead to heaven or hell, but that enjoyment given to you does not generate such karma. So when a person goes to Krishna, even for material desire, material enjoyment, Krishna bestows that karma will not bestow any. That fulfillment of material desire will not generate any karma. Those desires do not really lead to bondage. Thus, in reality, the meaning of the words heaven and hell does not apply in this case. However, because of similar result, it is stated. Prabhupada has applied it, so there's a little difference, but both are contextually one. Now he says, though I criticize the devotee's material desire, I have an evil mind. Since I have approached you, a desire tree feet, with feet which are the root cause for fulfilling all desire, with the material intention to attain a wife who can fulfill all desires in household life and who is suitable to my nature. And then he says, by calling his wife a cow, because Graha Meda Dhenum. Graha Meda Dhenum is like a cow which gives milk for the family and other things. He implies that he is a bull. By calling his wife a cow, he implies that he is a bull since he has no intelligence. Along with material desires, I am evil, Durasha, have no intelligence because of my bad intention. So then he says, so then Lord is saying, if this is so, use your intelligence. Why do not worship without desires? Right? So then he is saying that, my dear Lord, persons such as Marichi are bound by the ropes of instruction of Brahma, Prajapati, because he has ordered them to create progeny. And Brahma speaks only according to your instruction. He quotes the word, Saha Yagya Prajas Srastva Purvocha Prajapati. Brahma has no fault. He only echoes your word. Let the materialistic people be bound up. Why don't? So then Lord says, let the materialistic people be bound up. Why don't you overcome those desires like the Kumaras? And Kardamuni replies, my intelligence follows the common people. I cannot be like Narada and others. Like bull, I am bound by a rope and carrying an offering to you. I follow your orders concerning material life. This means I desire a wife. And I will also perform bhakti in order to attain you. O Shukla, O Vishnu, I make an offering to please you, the form of time. So basically, it's important to know that everyone does not have the same capacity. And everyone does not have to have the same capacity to attain the same goal. It's not required. What is required is that whatever capacity one has, in that capacity one should try to serve and please the Lord. That's why we say, don't try to do the best, try to do your best. That may vary. That may vary because sometimes even very great people in one regard may not be good in another regard. His great Jayanand Prabhu, whose name we have heard. Jayanand Prabhu was not at all a book distributor. Not only that he was some kind of distributor, he was like, and he would collect so much donation for the Rath Yatra, he would collect everything. He will collect fruits, he will collect flowers, he will, get all the permissions. But when it comes to distribute books, it was just not his element. That didn't make him a bad devotee because there's a narration which comes in Radha Damodar Vilas that Prabhupada mentioned a name in Nectar of Devotion that by Sriman Jayanand Prabhu's contribution we have published. But actually that money was actually used to publish teachings of Lord Chaitanya. So Prabhupada ordered that two cartons, bags of these books be given to Jayanand Prabhu and let him distribute. So they came. And because he was so obliged to fulfill the order, Srila Prabhupada was going. But said sometimes in a full day, he will distribute one teachings of Lord Chaitanya, which people will distribute within minutes, at airport and all. They will like distribute 100 book, 200 book, and one book. So sometimes it may be like that. That capacity may be different in different field for different people. So it is not a comparison of capacities. The Kumaras had the capacity to remain totally into the renounced order, and they attained the Lord through that means. And Kardama Muni feel that I don't have that capacity. I will fulfill my father's order, Brahmaji's order, by getting married, creating progeny. but I also want to attain the Lord. So that was another path. So goal should be focused, and the means and path are a matter of choice as per one's individual capacity. Because one cannot compare them. We are all carrying our, like yesterday we were discussing, we are all carrying our previous karmas, impressions, vasanas in this life, what we have done, what we have gone through. So whatever may be our capacity, we attain perfection by offering the Lord that full capacity. That's all. Lord wants what we have, which is also given by Him. Whatever we have, we give it to Him. Lord is fully satisfied. That is why Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam. That can be given by anyone. But kings like Amrish Maharaj, Yudhishthira Maharaj, they can give great opulent offering. That is also accepted. But the main element is that of bhakti, not about Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam or Chappan Bhog and Palatial or diamonds and rubies. It's not about that. As per capacity, but common thing is bhakti. Similarly, amongst all the ashramas and different kind of engagement and different things, the common theme is the devotion in the heart. My dear Lord, I am yours. Whatever I am yours. Whether I have material desires or no material desires, I am yours. Whatever I want, I'll ask from you. And it is said, Acharya say that even when these four kind of people approach the Lord become pleased. At least they have come to me. At least they feel connected to me. At least they feel dependent on me. They have come to me. For this qualification, I'll bestow this reward upon. Because they have come to me. Lord become pleased by that approach, that at least they consider me my father. Na? But sometimes you have seen, like child becomes very stubborn and demanding. Yahi karna, yahi khana, yahi cycle chahiye, yahi chahiye. But still, parents are, they may not want the child to have that desire, but still they feel happy that jiddi bhi hai to apna hi bacha hai na. So same way, the Lord feels that at least they feel connected. They're coming to me, even if they're asking for material desire. So what is the harm? Now they're asking material desire, and I am Ami Vigya Ei Murk Vishay Ke Nadiba. Swacharnamrita Diya Vishay Bulai. Okay, they have come to me, and Vishnu Thakur writes in the commentary that just like sometimes the child want to eat mud, then the mother takes away the mud and gives him sweet ball. So same way, they have come to eat the mud of sense gratification. So they have come. They don't know. Ami Vigya, Ei Murkha. He is a foolish person, but I am Vigya. I know it. So then what happens? The Lord gives in such a way that the material desire goes away and the desire and the connection with the Lord remains. That is Lord's great compassion. That's Lord's great mercy upon His devotees. So, yeah, now 17th verse will go. Lokam cha lokanugatan pasumscha hitva shitasche charanat patram parasparam tvad gunavad sidhu piyush nirapit deha dharma.
However, persons who have given up stereotype worldly affairs and beastly follower of their affairs and who have taken shelter of the umbrella of your lotus feet by drinking the intoxicating nectar of your qualities and activities in discussion with one another can be freed from the primary necessities of the material body.
Yeah. So who is qualified for liberation and who is qualified to attain the shelter of the Lord? That is being described here. So he says, after describing the necessity of material life, married life, Kardamuni asserts that marriage and other social affairs are stereotype regulation persons who are addicted to material sense enjoyment. Eating, sleeping, mating, defenses are actual necessities of life, but those who engage in transcendental Krishna consciousness, giving up all the stereotype activities of this material world, are freed from social conventions. And the conditioned soul can transcend the effect of past, present, and future as soon as engages in Krishna consciousness. One has to act in terms of the Vedic injunctions in order to enjoy material life, but those who have taken to the devotional service of the Lord are not afraid of the regulation of this material world. Such devotees do not care for the conventions of material activities. They boldly take to a shelter which is like umbrella against the sun of repeated birth and death. What is the sloka for this? Tyaktva swadharmam charanam bhujam hare bhajan napakho tapate tato yadi. So a devotee, he can give up the material duties if he is taking shelter of the Lord. So how to balance the duties and shelter, that's a detailed question, but one should do it under guidance. One cannot prematurely renounce or remain attached unnecessarily. And then Prabhupada talks about the suffering in material existence and how samsara davanal, Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur is talking about that, about the forest fire. And this can be extinguished only by a constant downpour of water from a cloud, which is compared to the mercy of the spiritual master. In order to find freedom from the stereotype conditioned life of material existence, one has to take shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, not in the manner in which the impersonal is indulged, but in devotional service, chanting and hearing the activities of the Lord. Only then can one be freed from the action and reaction of material existence. So chanting and hearing of the glories of the Lord is described here as Tvat Guna Vada Sidhu. Only by drinking the nectar of chanting and hearing the pastime of the Lord can one forget the intoxication of material existence. It's counteracted by that. So basically, devotees also may appear to be seen as a stereotype life. We also eat, we also take rest, we also have families and all. But the purpose of life changes. Although activities of life may apparently look similar, but the goal for which they are done is very different. So that is why that although action and intention both are very important in bhakti, but intentions are of greater importance than even actions. Like action may look similar to another family in mode of goodness. They do same thing, we do same thing. But the purpose for which we live in family, the purpose for which we take care of, our business and children and health and everything, that changes. And that changes come by hearing from the bona fide authorities. And by then further, Shravanam and Mananam, Nitidhyasanam, and Samadhi like that. So the process of Shravanam is there. नते जराक्ष भ्रमिरायुरेशम त्रयोदशारं त्रिशतं षष्टि पर्व षण्णेमि अनंत छद यत्रिनाभि कराल श्रोतो जगदाचिधत्तावत्.
Your your will, which has three naves, rotates around the axis of the imperishable Brahman. It has 13 spokes, 360 joints, six rims, and numberless leaves carved upon it. Though its revolution cuts short the lifespan of the entire creation, this wheel of tremendous velocity cannot touch the lifespan of the devotees of the Lord.
Yeah. Salpam apyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bhyat. Even a little execution of devotion service saves one from the greatest danger. So the greatest danger, transmigration, that is stopped only by devotional service. Harim vinana mritim taranti. Without the mercy of the Lord, one cannot stop the cycle of birth and death. And how one stop that? Janma karma chame divyam evam yovati tattvata tyaktva deham punarjanma neti mameti so Arjuna, he says. Only by understanding the transcendental nature of the Lord and his activities, with appearance and disappearance, one can stop the cycle of death and go back to him. And then the time factor divided into moment, hours. You have read in the same canto, there's a chapter called the calculation of time from the atom. So right from a Chanika up to light years it goes. So there are moment, hours, months, year, period, season, and all these are described in the form of the time wheel. There are 6 seasons, Chaturmasya, and there's a period of 4 months, Chaturmasya, and there are 13 months, Adhik Mas is added in that. So these all things cannot touch the life span of the devotee who has taken shelter of the Lord. Ekam swayam sanjagata sisrakshaya dvitiyayatman adiyoga mayaya srajasyayadah pasi punagrashishyase yathornanabhir bhagavan swasakti.
My dear Lord, you alone create the universes. O personality of Godhead, desiring to create this universe, you create them, maintain them, and again wind them up by your own energy, which are under the control of your second energy called Yoga Maya. Just as a spider create a cobweb by its own energy and again winds it up.
Yeah. So the example is given how the Lord create like a spider creates a cobweb by his energy. The spider does not disappear. The spider does not change. It just by his energy saliva he creates the cobweb. Again it winds up. Similarly, the impersonalist concept that the Lord only gets transformed when creation happens, that is not true. Lord creates through his energy and again winds it up when the right time comes. And uh, and you know, Lord is asking that, okay, if you want to get married, then better you go to demigod. Now, why do you come to me? So that's why he says here, my dear Lord, you alone create the universe, and you alone create all the aspects of this universe, and no one other than you whom I see in this universe. That is why there's no purpose in going to demigod. I come to you only even for the fulfillment of my desires. नैताद्बदादिष्पदं तवेप्सितं यन्मायया नस्तनुषे भूतसूक्ष्मम् अनुग्रहायास्त्वप्यर्हि मायया लस्तु तुलस्या भगवान् विलक्षितः.
My dear Lord, although it is not your desire, you manifest this creation of gross and subtle element just for our sensual satisfaction. Let your causeless mercy be upon us, for you have appeared before us in your eternal form, adorned with a splendid wreath of tulsi leaves.
Yeah. So this Prabhupada says the material world is not created for those who do not want to enjoy sense gratification. So this material world is created for those who want to enjoy sense gratification. For those who do not want to enjoy sense gratification and those who constantly remain in transcendental loving service and who are eternally Krishna conscious, for them the spiritual world is eternally existing and they enjoy there. Right? But this is created for the people who want to enjoy separate from the Lord. It is Krishna is so kind that he allows the sense enjoying living entity a separate world created by him to enjoy as they like. Yet at the same time, he appears in his personal form and try to give the living entity a chance to come to the original place. The Lord unwillingly creates this material world. He creates, but how? Unwillingly. And later he descends in a personal form or send one of his reliable sons or a servant or reliable author like Vyasadeva to give instruction. He himself also gives Bhagavad Gita. This propaganda work goes on side by side with the creation to convince the misguided living entities who are rotting in this mental world to come back to him and surrender unto him. And then Sarvadhanan Pratsita Mamikam Shanapuri. Tam Tvanubhutyo Paratakriartham Samayaya Vartita Lokatantram Namamya Bhikshanam Namani Pada Sarojamalpi Yashikama Varshama.
I continuously offer my respectful obeisances unto your lotus feet, of which it is worthy to take shelter, because you shower all benediction of the insignificant on the significant, to give all living entity detachment from fruitive activities by realizing you. You have expanded this material world by your own energy.
So, ye yathama prapatin, the Lord creates a universe for different living entity of different desire and to fulfill their purposes. So everyone, therefore, whether he desire material enjoyment, liberation, transcendental loving service, should engage himself offering obeisance unto Supreme Lord, because he can avoid everyone's desired benediction. So, for all purposes, one can approach the Lord. For material enjoyment, he has prescribed so many ritualistic sacrificial performances in the Vedas, and thus people may take advantage of those instructions, enjoy material life in a higher planet or in a noble aristocratic family. They are mentioned in the Vedas. Unless one is disgusted with the enjoyment of this material world, he cannot aspire for liberation. Liberation is for one who is disgusted with material enjoyment. Therefore, Vedanta Sutta says, Athato Brahma Jigyata. Those who have given up the attempt to be happy in this material world can inquire about the absolute truth. For those who want to know the absolute truth, Vedanta Sutra is available as Srimad Bhagavatam. And when one obtains real knowledge, he becomes theoretically one with the Supreme and he actually begins service of Brahman or Krishna. He is not only liberated but situated in a spiritual life. So for those who want to lord it over material nature, there are so many departments of material enjoyment, material knowledge and material science are available. And the Lord provides for person who want to enjoy them. The conclusion is that one should worship the Supreme Personality of God head. One should worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead for any benediction. Okay. One should only worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead for any benediction. Kama Varsham indicates that he satisfies the desire of anyone who approaches him, but one who sincerely loves Krishna and yet wants mental enjoyment is in perplexity. Krishna, being very kind toward him, gives him an opportunity to engage in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, and so he gradually forgets the hallucination. This is again the translation of the verse. Ami Vigya Ei Murkha Vishaya Kena Diva. So the purpose of material creation has been mentioned by Kardamuni here. And just we'll see a little bit from Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's comments also. Here he says, the father, their son, brothers who follow their instruction gain fame and happiness from following material dharma. Why do you criticize their material desire? What fame and happiness do the detached devotees have, giving sorrow to their fathers, for which you praise them? You know. So then he's responding in two verses that materialistic are like animals, there's no fault in rejecting them. And all Lokan can refer to those well versed in logic, and their followers are those who are not well versed in scripture, who follow their instruction with faith. Both are like animals because they lack bhakti. Others who take shelter of the umbrella of your lotus feet, those who are animals and do not take shelter must burn up in the heat of material existence, and who take shelter have unlimited happiness. So he talks of that. And devotees and no others conquer time. The wheel of time pursues and destroys the universe, but it does not pursue and destroy the life of the devotee. So then the description of the wheel of time is given. And he say, you say the devotees are fortunate, Lord is saying, because you cannot, but that you cannot be free of desire. So why do you not fulfill your desire by worshipping devatas who quickly fulfill those desires? So then Kardamuni says, but I do not see anyone except you in the universe. So this is explained in this verse. How you cast your glance, and by your glance the creation comes. Like a spider creates everything with the cell, similarly you alone create, no one else. If this is true, then by my mercy may you have the greatest wife, sons, enjoyment, and wealth. So Lord is saying that. So in two verses, he is saying that Lord gives benediction. Oh Lord, you do not desire to give these desired things to me, since you think of the welfare of a devotee, as you have said earlier. Then why do I give those things? Lord is asking. If you give material pleasure to us, that is because of our Maya. The ignorant devotee will otherwise be disappointed. Because I ask, you give. So it is not the material benedictions are given by you willingly. Because I am asking, that's why you are giving. Material happiness resides in the mind already in the form of vasanas. You extend that happiness by giving benediction. That is the implication of the word. If that is so, then should I give anything? Then Kardamuni is saying, let it be given, but only for gaining your mercy. What way? Oh, this devotee has fallen into the darkness of the material world by the happiness I have given him. I will deliver him. Let it be given for the purpose of gaining your mercy. Your spiritual body is endowed with shining tulsi, which give you great pleasure, since it has been offered during worship by the devotee. This form worshipped by the devotee is not material, showing this spiritual form is the Lord's mercy. And then he says, when by mercy you give realization of your sweetness, the desire to enjoy automatically ceases. You have a covering of happiness and distress produced from karma for all living being, which is caused by the order of a material Maya. So basically what he's saying is that, my dear Lord, I have material desire and I'm asking you to fulfill it. But while I have material desire and I'm asking you to fulfill it, simultaneously I'm also asking your mercy that I become your pure servant. So it's it's not the desire for sense gratification separate from the Lord. At the same time, it is not the purest form of worship also. So what is there? It is bona fide. Just like sense gratification become bona fide when it is as per the Vedic literature, they define it. Aisa karna, aisa karo, or steady karo, aisa karo. So similarly, one approaches the Lord and one says that I'm incapable of practicing pure devotional service at this time. So this is my material desire, but you fulfill it in a way that my interest in pure devotional service should not be minimized. Still, I should aspire for pure devotional service. But right now, this is my need. This is my desire to fulfill it. So that is why this dialogue is going on between Kardamuni and the Supreme Lord, because it's a very unique setting when the Supreme Lord has appeared, being pleased by the austerities of a devotee, and the devotee is asking for apparently for something material to get entangled. Already, family life has been discussed at multiple places into Bhagavatam as Graha and the Kupam, as a deep dark well. Prahlad Maharaj also talks about it. Prabhu Maharaj also talks about it. Parishit Maharaj also talks about it. These people who have been very elevated devotees, they also talk about it in that way. Because it's tough. It's not Easy. And another thing is they take a humble role. They don't think that we are exalted grastas. They think, no, no. We have also fallen into this pool of wife, children, wealth, and everything, and we have forgotten the Lord like that. Prachita is also the same mood. So out of their humility, they feel like that. So this is very different. They are approaching the Lord for a wife and progeny. Daksha also did same thing now what we are reading. But Daksha did it for his own prestige. Daksha did not pray that, my dear Lord, let me make him a pure devotee eventually. No, he said, give me that and I want to serve you in this way. You accept service. So here they are also doing service. They are also, Kardamani is also asking for wife, but the mood is very, very different. So now that Kardamani has offered prayers, now the Lord will reciprocate with another 10 verses, which we will read quickly. The time is running fast. Where we came? Not this. Yeah. Yeah, Matrimony is resuming now. Matrimony is continuing. Please read.
Maitreya resumed, sincerely extolled in these words. Lord Vishnu, shining very beautifully on the shoulders of Garuda, replied with words as sweet as nectar. His eyebrows moved gracefully as he looked at the sage with a smile full of affection.
Yeah. So Prabhupada focusing on the word Vachasa Amritena. Whenever the Lord speaks, he speaks from the transcendental world. He does not speak from the material world. And his speech is transcendental, his activity is transcendental. Amrita refer to one who does not meet with that death. So sound of material world and spiritual world are completely different. The sound of the spiritual world is nectarian and eternal, whereas the sound of the material world is hackneyed and subjective. The sound of the holy name, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram. Everlastingly increases the enthusiasm of the chanter. If one repeats monotonous material world, he will feel exhausted. But if he chant Hare Krishna 24 hours a day, he will never feel exhausted. Rather, he will feel encouraged to continue chanting more and more. So we saw that example today. How many days Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj was chanting without food and water? He was telling, no? Morning class. Kitna din? Morning class
Evening 3 to morning 7. 3 to 7.
3 to 7, and later on when the flood came, na?
20 days.
20 days, there was no food, but he was continuously chanting. And his servant Bihari became sick and he revived. कौन कौन नहीं था क्लास में? हम लोग बाहर थे क्या? Okay. So it's a proof. If he chant Hare Krishna 24 hours a day, he'll never feel exhausted. Rather, he'll feel encouraged to continue chanting more and more. When the Lord replied to sage Kardama, the word Vachasamrita is specifically mentioned since he spoke from the transcendental world. He replied in transcendental words, and when he spoke, his eyebrows moved with great affection. So when a devotee praises the glories of the Lord is very satisfied and he bestows transcendental benediction upon the devotee without reservation. Okay, Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Veditva Tava Chaityam Me Purava Samyojitat Yadartham Atmanyame Stvavehe Vaham Samarchitaha.
The Supreme Lord said, having come to know what was in your mind, I have already arranged for that for which you have worshipped me well through your mental and sensory discipline.
So Lord being Paramatma in the heart, he knows individual person's desires, activities, and everything about him. So he had already arranged for the fulfillment of his desire even before he asked. The personality of God knew the heart's desire of Kardamuni and he had already arranged for the fulfillment of the desire. He never disappoints a sincere devotee, regardless of what he wants, but he never allows anything which will be detrimental to the individual's devotional service. So Lord fulfills anything in a way that is not detrimental to the devotional service. So Navai Jatu Mrshevashyat Prajadyaksha Mad Arhanam Bhavad Videshwatityaram Mai Sangravitatmanam.
The Lord continued, my dear Rishi, O leader of the living entities, for those who serve me in devotion by worshipping me, especially persons like you who have given up everything unto me, there is never any question of frustration.
So there is Sakam Bhaktas and Akam Bhaktas. Sakam Bhaktas are Artho Artharthi Jigyasu Gyanicha Bhartarshava. And Akam Bhaktas are Anya Avilashita Shunyam Gyan Karmadi Anavritam. So both are blessed by the Lord. He says there is no frustration of any for any of these four classes of men. Each is endowed with the desired result of his worship, and gradually they come to the path of pure devotion service. Okay, read.
The Emperor Swayambhu Manu, the son of Lord Brahma, who is well known for his righteous acts, has his seat in Brahmavarta and rules over the earth with its 7 oceans.
Yeah. So somebody says Brahmavarta is a part of Kurukshetra, or the Kurukshetra is in Brahmavarta. So whatever. In others' opinion, Brahmavarta is a place in Brahmaloka. So there are many places on surface of earth which are also known in the higher planetary system. And many similar names are on the surface of the earth, like Vrindavan, Dwarka. So word Mangala is important. It means one who is elevated in every respect. It is used for Swayambhu Manu because he had the opulence of religious performance, ruling power, cleanliness. And Vikhyata means famous, celebrated. So Swayambhu Manu was celebrated for all good qualities. Read next.
The day after tomorrow, Brahmana, the celebrated emperor, who is expert in religious activities, will come here with his queen Sadarupa, wishing to see you. He has a grown-up daughter whose eyes are black. She is ready for marriage and she has good character and all good qualities. She is also searching for a good husband. My dear sir, her parents will come to see you, who are exactly suitable for her, just to deliver their daughter as their wife.
Lord did the match fixing. Lord arranged the marriage. And Prabhupada very emphatically says that it is clearly stated Manu and his wife were coming to see Kardamuni to offer their daughter because their daughter was well qualified. Parents were searching out a similarly qualified man. This is the duty of the parents. Girls are never thrown into the public street to search out their husband, for when girls are grown up and are searching after a boy, they forget to consider whether the boy they select is actually suitable for them or not. Out of the urge of sex desire, a girl may accept anyone, but if the husband is chosen by the parent, they can consider who is to be selected or not. So parents earlier also, they used to give chance to girl also, but they used to organize that. Swayamvara was a very highly dignified ceremony where the girl was given that freedom to choose from the many people who have come to, get her in marriage. And we find many, right? We find about Draupadi Swayamvar. Krishna also went to another Swayamvar, no? He went. And Nagnijiti, he got into another. So they will put a condition. Even Mata Sita, she has a Swayamvar also. So very dignified. We don't find a boy going and there are 100 girls chasing after. It was always, ladies first. They always had that privilege to choose the husband and put some condition. कितने लोगों का हाथ पैर टूट जाता है सोचो. और 7 bulls, which King Nagnijit kept, कितना लोगों का हाथ पैर तोड़ा होगा. They were especially averse to Kshatriyas. The bulls were. They smell Kshatriya, they will become extra aggressive. They'll fight with them. So they were there, but there was a whole system in which parents will take responsibility of finding suitable match for their girl as per the qualification, and not left, and not thrown into the public street. The word. Okay.
That princess, O holy sage, will be just the type you have been thinking of in your heart for all these long years. She will soon be yours and will serve you in your heart's content.
The Lord is informing Kardamuni, the girl who is coming to be married with you is the princess, the daughter of Empress. So just suitable for your purpose. Prabhupada says, only by God's grace one can get a nice wife just as he desires. Similarly, it is only by God's grace that a girl gets a husband suitable to her heart. Thus it is said that we pray to the Supreme Lord in every transaction of our material existence. Everything will be done very nicely and just suitable to our heart's desire. In other words, all circumstances, we must take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and depend completely on His decision. The fulfillment of desires, therefore, should be entrusted to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is the nicest solution. The Kardamuni desired only a wife, but because he was a devotee of the Lord selected a wife for him who was the emperor's daughter, a princess. The Kardamuni got a wife beyond his expectation. If we depend on the choice of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, we will receive benedictions and greater opulence than we desire. So when we desire, we don't get something. We should know that it's only good, but Lord wants to give us the best. So what He's not giving may be good for us, but what He will give will be best for us. So there's no need of getting irritated, frustrated in any situation of life, and knowing that Lord fulfills the desire of His devotee as per what is best for His devotee. So, and then Kardamuni was a Brahmana and Kshatriya, Swayambhu Manu was a Kshatriya. So this was a Anulom marriage. this marriage was intercaste. It was allowed because Anulom, husband was from a higher order than wife. Otherwise, sometimes it was Pratiloma. Pratiloma means Brahmana's girl, like Sukracharya's daughter. What was her name? Devayani. And married to Yayati Maharaj. So it was a Pratilom marriage. Pratilom was not considered good. Anulom was okay. It's quoted here. Yeah. Okay.
She will bring forth 9 daughters from the seed sown in her by you. And through the daughters you beget the sages will duly beget children. With your heart cleansed by properly carrying out my command, resigning to me the fruits of all your acts, you will finally attain to me.
So, the purification of heart is a process which takes time. Some earlier it was taking times of lifetimes, but now by Prabhupada's mercy, Prabhupada says in one lifetime one can go back to Godhead, as we were discussing yesterday on Tadiko's class. So still there's a process. One has to know that one may know many things by reading books, right? Nowadays, so many books are available in folio also, internet also, and now available. Copies also available. Many advanced books also. So many books may be available. One may know what it looks like Raganuga Bhakti, what it looks like, Ashtaprahar Leela or this or that. But where one is, it's very important to know where one is. And at that level, one should follow the rules and regulations. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in his book, he describes that this tat karma pramantan was atyahar prayasya prajalpo niyamagraha jansanga sallolyam cha, and that is utsahad nishya dhairya tat karma pramantana sanga tyaga sato vritti. I think it's in tat karma pravartana that one should know one's adhikar and then follow the rules and regulations. Because rules and regulations vary as the person grows. We know that somebody is chanting 2 rounds and on Janmashtami start 4 rounds. He said, Hari Bol. So it's not about 4 rounds. It's about who is chanting 4 rounds. When somebody chanting 60 rounds, he also said, maybe kal se 4 mala karunga. He may get a slap. So, and he says that if one, actually, I'm forgetting that which he uses it for. He uses it for dharma. What is dharma? Dharma, he says, dharma is to follow the rules and regulation as per one's adhikar. And what does not follow, then one becomes stagnant. He may fall down also. So similarly, the pure devotional service may be known to us. Anya Vilashita Shunyam Jnana Karmadya Navritam. And we aspire for that. That is our goal. But still, there may be material desires which are making us struggle. So then how to deal with them, that one should take guidance. Which desire to address, which not to address. So otherwise, one may enter into a very confused state of mind. So Kardam Muni identified that he needs some time. He needs to please the Lord by entering into Grastha Ashram and then please the Lord in that way. And he entered with a retirement plan that he will tell also. He will tell, and before marriage only he will tell his father-in-law, देखो शादी कर रहा हूँ लेकिन बच्चे होते ही मैं जा रहा हूँ. ऐसा नहीं कि मुझे लाइफ लॉन्ग इधर रहने का है. So he did enter. He accepted the reality of his heart. That is not like Kumaras who could just be nestic brahmachari. So he entered. But then he entered. Then he did not enter. Chalo, abhi license mil gaya. Ab jeena yahan, marna yahan. Iske siva jana. Aisa nahi tha. Then he entered Grastha life also. Then he was very clear that I am there because my heart is to be purified. My heart will become purified by taking responsibility in Grastha life, and then I'll come out because I know that the goal of life is to get completely absorbed in loving devotional service only, without any distraction. But to reach there, to purify my heart with whatever propensities I have to go through this path of that. So that is a very important thing that's mentioned here. Tirtha Krishna Kriya Artha. Tirtha means a sanctified place where charity is given. Therefore, Lord says, in order to sanctify your activity and the result of your action, you will offer everything unto me. Whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you sacrifice, yat karoshi, yat akshanasi, yat jujoshi dadasi, yat tapasviti pantaya, tat kurushu madarpanam. Bhaktaram Yagya Tapsam Sarvaloka Maheshwaram. So all activities, whether be for the welfare of family, society, country, or humanity, must be performed in Krishna consciousness. Right. So similarly, if we act in Krishna consciousness under the direction of the Lord and representative, then everything is sanctified. This is indication given to Kardama Muni who acted on it and therefore received the most excellent wife and child, as will be disclosed in later words. That's a very important thing. And this is the last verse. Kritva dayam cha jiveshu dattva cha bhayam atmavan mai atmanam sah jagad rakshashri atmani chapimam.
Showing compassion to the all living entities, you will attain self-realization. Giving assurance of safety to all, you will perceive your own self as well as all the universes in me and myself in you.
Yeah. So this is the Lord's final. There's one more. One more where he says that I will appear as your son. But in here he says that Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur translated as a grasta, you show compassion to all living entities, give charity, to enlighten everyone by self-realization. Prabhupada, because in ISKCON, there are not some orders and all these are not something very rigid. Somebody is a brahmachari becomes a grasta, this and that all happens. So Prabhupada writes a very generic thing. He says, it's duty of every man to show compassion to others. So one should practice Krishna consciousness and should distribute Krishna consciousness. So the purport is very instructive. And Prabhupada says, the first principle to be understood is that this world is a product of the Supreme Will. There is an identity of this world with the Supreme Lord. And thus, knowing that, and then he condemns the pantheism where they accept that world and everything in it to be the Lord. It's not Lord, it lords, right? The creation is not God. Creation is God's creation. So this is the view of the impersonalist. Personal devotees of the Lord take everything to be the property of the Supreme Lord. Everything, whatever we see is the manifestation of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, everything should be engaged in the service of the Lord. This is oneness. So the difference between personalism and impersonalism is given that the Lord, impersonalist does not accept the separate existence of the Lord. Lord and Lord's energy. Mayavadis, impersonalists don't accept. They think Lord only is everything. But devotee know Lord is there, his energy is there. Energy can get transformed and the Lord does not get transformed. Just like the sun. The sun is at one place, but because of sunshine, so much changes happen. Clothes get dried up, the crops get ripened, the clouds are formed. So much is happening by the effect of sunshine, but the sun is fixed at one place. So this example is given. Sun example is given, and the herbs example is given. And the example of money is given by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Chaitanya Charitamrita. How these objects remain undisturbed, untouched, unchanged, and still they have effect and they can change other things. Sunshine can change, herb can have a smell by which people can get cured, and the herb remains the same. And similarly, there are some, stones can emit light and enlighten thing, and they remain the same. So when this metal object has such thing, then why the Lord has to distribute himself in the form of creation? Lord is there, his energy creates. As Brahmajyoti, he is all pervading. As Paramatma, he is within everything. But as Krishna, as the Supreme Person of Godhead, as a person, he also remains separate. So this principle is being spoken several times in this purport. And regarding the sun and sunshine example is also given. So one's energy should be utilized for one's self-interest. That is the perfect energy. And then he says, a person in Krishna consciousness, a devotee of the Lord, is always compassionate. He is not satisfied that only he himself is a devotee, but he tries to distribute the knowledge of devotional service to everyone. And they even take many risks in distributing the devotional service to the people in general. And then he talks of three kinds of devotees in the end. A person who goes to temple and worship with great devotion but does not show sympathy to people in general or show respect to other devotees is considered to be a third-class devotee, Vaishnava Praya. Second-class devotee is Prem Maitri Kripa Upeksha Ya Karoti Sa Madhyama. So he is always cognizant of his position as the internal servant of Lord. He therefore makes friendship with devotees of the Lord and Kripa towards the general public in teaching them devotional service, and Upeksha refuses to cooperate or associate with non-devotees. As long as one is not compassionate to people in general in his devotional service, he is third-class devotee. First-class devotee is, he gives assurance to every living being that there is no fear of this material existence. Let us live in Krishna consciousness and conquer the nations of material existence. So, And then it indicate Kardamuni was directed by the Lord to be very compassionate and liberal in his householder life and to give assurance to the people in his renounced life as a sannyasi. He should travel, going from home to enlighten. The householder get totally absorbed in family affairs, forgetting their relationship with Krishna. So sannyasi's job is to go house to house and show mercy to the fallen soul and then awaken them. And to award fearlessness to the common man is the greatest act of charity. And that's why sannyasi should go home to do that. And a person who is householder but is initiated by a sannyasi has the duty to spread Krishna consciousness at home as far as possible. He should call his friend and neighbors to his house and hold classes in Krishna consciousness. So this is for a grastha also. And householder should earn money. The householder should earn money by business or by profession and spend at least 50% of his income to spread Krishna consciousness. 25% he can spend for his family. 25% he should save to meet emergencies. So, and then he talks about being oneness, means to become one with the interest of the Lord, not become one with the Lord. Part can never become the whole. So last verse is this. Read it.
O great sage, I shall manifest my own plenary portion through your wife, Revahuti, along with your 9 daughters, and I shall instruct her in the system of philosophy that deals with the ultimate principles of categories.
Yeah. So Lord says that I'll again come as Kapila Dev and write. Srila Vishwanath Thakur says he will write Tattva Samhita. Prabhupada says that I will elaborate the system of philosophy in the ultimate principles or categories. So two things are focused here. One is Swamsa Kalaya, that appear as the sun, to write Tattva Samhita. And then it talks about the two kinds of Kapila, one who gave atheistic Sankhya and the one who gave this Sankhya. And then secondly, he talks about uh, expansion. One is called Kala and another is called Vivinnamsha. So living entities are Vivinnamshas, they're separated energies. And the expansions are called Swamsa. And Swamsa refer to direct expansion like Balaram, and Kala refers to expansion from Balaram and further like that. So they are, but there's no difference. Dipalchireva hi Dashantaram Abhipetya. So candle example. One should, so there's no potential difference between the form of the Lord whom we worship and the form of the Lord in the temple. One should not think that one is worshipping a taller statue of the Lord, even if others consider it to be a statue. So one gets the same result by worshipping the statue of the Lord or the Lord himself, because deity is not different from the Lord from the absolute perspective. So now the Lord benedicts him and gives him instruction, tells him the future, tells him that who is going to be his wife, and how he will give him 9 daughters and he will come as his own son, and thus instructing the Lord leaves. So now Maitreya Muni continues. Read.
Maitreya went on. Thus, having spoken to Kardama Muni, the Lord, who reveals himself only when the senses are in Krishna consciousness, departed from that lake called Bindu Sarovar, which was encircled by the river Saraswati.
So Prabhupada takes this word Pratyak Akshajaha. He is imperceptible to material senses, but still he can be seen. Like with Ad Akshaja. Ad Akshaja means one is beyond Aksha, Ad Akshaja. One cannot be seen by the material eyes. So this seems to be contradictory. We have material sense, then how can we see the Lord? He's called Adokshaja. Because the Lord is not an object that can be understood by speculation within our material senses. He's called Ajita. He'll conquer, but no one can conquer him. What does it mean? Then still he can be seen. It is explained that no one can hear the transcendental name of Krishna, no one can understand his transcendental form, and no one can assimilate his transcendental pastime. It is not possible. Then how is it possible that he can be seen and understood? So then Prabhupada answers, when one is trained in devotional service and renders service unto him, gradually one's senses are purified of material contamination. With these purified senses means that the Lord empowers those senses. Lord removes that material covering over those senses. So then the purification of the material senses and perception of the transcendental form, name, and quality of Krishna are combined together in one word, Pratyak Akshaja. So this is the meaning. One is trained in devotional service. Training means what? Atah Shri Krishna Namadi Na Bhavet Grahayam Indriya. Grahayam Indriya is not possible. Indriya cannot do Grahan, cannot accept that. Then what is the thing? Sevan Mukhohi Jivvado. When one becomes filled with the attitude of service, is starting with chant. Sevan Mukho hi Jiva Ado. That means beginning with chant. Beginning with tongue, not that it ends with tongue. Beginning with tongue. One start chanting the holy name, one start honoring prasadam, but then one start taking darshan with the eyes, one start hearing the katha with the ears, right? One start offering obeisance with the body. So, Jiva Ado, beginning with the tongue. When one engages in service of the Lord with all one's karmendriyas and gyanendriyas, starting with the tongue, and one's heart becomes filled with service attitude, and to serve means to please. That's the meaning of service. When we get some remuneration, when we want some expectation at the end of the service, that is not counted as a pure service. Service means, my dear Lord, you gave me that. I'm grateful for having the service, and I'm happy to offer that service for your pleasure. And your pleasure is my goal. That is service. Sevan Mukho. That kind of attitude, when one develops, then Swam Eva Spurtyata, then the Lord reveals. It is not the senses capture, but the Lord reveals. And when Lord want to reveal, Lord can reveal to anyone. There's no restriction on Lord that senses cannot gain or not gain. Lord gives the qualification to the senses to perceive himself. Read it.
While the sage stood looking on, the Lord left by the pathway leading to Vaikuntha, a path extolled by all great liberated souls. The sage stood listening as the hymns forming the basis of the Sam Ved were vibrated by the flapping wings of the Lord's carrier Garuda.
So, two things again here, that Garuda is flapping his wings, and the two divisions, Brahat and Rathantara. So, they are being vibrated. They form the basis of Samveda. So, then that was happening. And second thing is about the pathway to Vaikuntha. He says, the Lord was being carried to Vaikuntha. It is thus confirmed that the Lord descends from his abode Vaikuntha in the spiritual sky and is carried by Garuda. So, that is why the path of Vaikuntha is worshipped by the devotees, not by others. Many persons who try to attain perfection by striving for liberation from material bondage, but those who are actually liberated are called Brahmabhuta. So, he talks about that. The conditioned soul cannot understand the devotional service of the Lord. Kardam Muni was a liberated soul who saw the Supreme Lord in person, face to face. There was no doubt that he was liberated, and thus he could see Garuda carrying the Lord on the way to Vaikuntha and hear the flapping of his wings vibrating the sound of Hare Krishna, essence of Samveda. So, then the sage remained on the bank of Bindu Sarovar, awaiting the time of which the Lord had spoken. Lord did not, give a long period. These days, there is a lot of gap between marriage getting finalized and actual marriage happening. Sometimes 3, 4, 6 months like that. But Lord said, "Aaj ho gaya, parson hi, kal ka din thoda relax kar, parson hi aa jayenge," and a new life will begin. So after the departure of the Lord, the worshipful sage Kardama stayed on the bank of Bindu Sarovar, awaiting the time for which the Lord had spoken. So now Manu is coming. Read.
Swayambhu Manu with his wife mounted his chariot, which was decorated with golden ornaments. Placing his daughter on it with them, he began traveling all over the earth.
So he took it as a personal responsibility. He did not delegated it. Right? It took that it is his daughter. So he has a personal responsibility. He did not appoint anyone else to find a husband for him, her. Then now the beauty of the heritage will be described further. There is the hermitage of the sage who just completed his vows of austerity on that very day. Yeah. Now there's a description till text number 44 of the Bindu Sarovar. Read it.
The holy lake Bindu Sarovar, flooded by the water of the river Saraswati, was restored to by hordes of eminent sages. Its holy water was not only auspicious but as sweet as nectar. It was called Bindu Sarovar because drops of tear had fallen there from the eyes of the Lord, who was overwhelmed by extreme compassion for the sage who had sought his protection.
Just see, the Lord cried tears. Although Kardam Muni, in his approach, he wanted a wife, but still because he approached the Lord was so happy. And he agreed to fulfill his desire. He agreed to become his son. He cried tears. Prabhupada in the purport says that just like Ganges is coming from the lotus feet of the Lord, so Bindu Sarovar is the tears of the Lord. So there's no difference between the perspiration of the Lord and the teardrop which came from the eyes of the Lord. So one who drinks the water of Bindu Sarovar and one who takes bath in Ganges, they get relieved of all the material diseases. So that is valid even in Kali Yuga. So I don't know which Bindu Sarovar. There is one Bindu Sarovar in Bhubaneswar. Whether it is same or different, I have no idea. But there's one Bindu Sarovar there also. Okay, now there's a description of the lake.
The shore of the lake was surrounded by clusters of pious trees and creepers, rich in fruits and flowers of all seasons, that afforded shelters to pious animals and birds, which utters various cries. It was adorned by the beauty of groves of forest trees.
The purpose is just like there are pious men and impious men. Similarly, there are trees, creeper, which are pious and impious. Some trees have thorns, they're good for nothing, they're used only for burning. So they are not considered as pious. But the trees which bear fruits and flowers, they are considered pious. So Bindu Sarovar was surrounded by all the trees and creeper which has flowers and fruits on them. And there was not a single impious bird or tree in that area. Every tree bore fruits and flower, and every bird sang the glories of the Lord. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram. Amazing. Every bird was singing, not humans only. Okay. Read.
The area resounded with the notes of overjoyed bats. Intoxicated bees wandered there. Intoxicated peacocks proudly danced, and merry cuckoos called one another. As Kadamba, Champaka, Asoka, Karanja, Bakula, Asana, Kunda, Mandara, Kutaja, and young mango trees. The air was filled with the pleasing notes of Karandava ducks, plovers, swans, ospreys, waterflow cranes, chakravakas, and kakoras.
Yeah. For most of the trees, flower, fruits, and bird mentioned here as surrounding, English synonyms cannot be found. English is such a limited language. You can't find every synonym in English. All the trees are pious. They produce a nice aromatic flower, the champak, kadamba, bakula. And there was sweet sound all around. Very suitable spiritual atmosphere. Yes.
Its source abounded with deer, boars, porcupines, gavayas, elephants, baboons, lions, monkeys, mongoose, and musk deer.
Then he explains that the musk deers are always intoxicated by the aroma of musk. They keep on searching for that. And gavyas, the cows are there which have chamar. They are called chamari also. Chamar is used for running the deities. And there are still gypsies who make trade by this and sustain their life. Yes.
Entering that most sacred spot with his daughter and going near the sage, the first monarch Swayambhu Manu saw the sage sitting in his hermitage, having just propitiated the sacred fire by pouring oblation into it. His body shone most brilliantly. Though he had engaged in austere penance for a long time, he was not emaciated, for the Lord had cast his affectionate sidelong glance upon him, and he has also had the nectar flowing from the moon-like words of the Lord. The sage was tall, his eyes were large, like the petals of a lotus, and he had matted locks on his head. He was clad in a rags. Swayambhamana approached and saw him to be somewhat soiled like an unpolished gem.
So here's the last darshan of Brahmachari before he gets married. So Prabhupada writes a Brahmachari purport. So read that full purport line by line. So here are some description of a Brahmachari yogi. In the morning, first duty of a Brahmachari seeking spiritual elevation is Hutasan. To offer sacrificial oblation to the Supreme Lord. Those engaged in Brahmacharya cannot sleep until 7 or 9 o'clock in the morning. They must rise early in the morning, at least 1.5 hours before the sun rises, and offer oblations. Or in this age, they must chant the holy names of the Lord Hare Krishna. As referred to by the Lord Chaitanya, Kalau Nastyo, 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 Gatanand. So there's no other alternative, no other alternative, no other alternative in this age to chanting the holy name of the Lord. Brahmachari must rise early in the morning and after bathing should chant the holy name of the Lord. The Prabhupada makes it more clear. After bathing should chant. Exceptionally, we may chant before bathing, but Prabhupada says after bathing chant. From the very feature of the sage, it appeared that he had undergone great austerities. That is the sign of one observing brahmacharya, the vow of celibacy. If one lives otherwise, that means without performing austerities, it will be manifest in the lust visible in the face and body. The word vidyotmanam indicates that the brahmachari feature showed in his body. That is a certificate that one has undergone great austerity in yoga. A drunkard or a smoker or sex monger can never be eligible to practice yoga. Generally, yogis look very skinny because they're not being very comfortably situated. But Kardamuni was not emaciated, for he had seen the Supreme Personality of Godhead face to face. Here the word Snigdha Pango Valokanat means that he was fortunate enough to see the Supreme Lord face to face. He looked healthy because he had directly received the nectarian sound vibrations from the lotus lips of the personality of Godhead. Similarly, one who hears the transcendental sound vibration of the holy name of the Lord, Lord Krishna, Hare Krishna, also improves in health. So this is a secret which no Ayurvedic, homeopathic, allopathic, naturopathic doctor tells. What is this? One who hears the transcendental sound vibration of the holy name of the Lord, Hare Krishna, also improves in health. We have actually seen that many brahmachari and grasthas connected with the International Society for Krishna Consciousness have improved in health and a lustre has come to their faces. It is essential that a brahmachari engaged in spiritual advancement look very healthy and lustrous. It is essential that a brahmachari engaged look very healthy and lustrous. The comparison of the sage to an unpolished gem is very appropriate. Even if a gem just taken from mine looks unpolished, the luster of the gem cannot be stopped. Similarly, although Kardam was not properly dressed and his body was not properly cleansed, his overall appearance was gem-like. So a lot of instruction for brahmacharis. Wake up early and then perform austerity, but we will be healthy when we hear the holy name. Actually, one who chants Namavas, one who uh, chants without offenses, then one overcomes all the health issues because of that. This is one of the symptoms of Namavas. Disease will not be there in the body because one rises above the prarabdha karma by chanting Namavas. So this is one of the symptoms given for Namavas chanting. So in any case, even if we are sick and problems are there, but if we chant the holy name as attentively as we can try to hear, then we will not get dragged by them. Because one of the problems in Brahmacharya life is the bodily conscience, very strong. Uh, and because we don't care for other bodies, we don't have wives, children, others to take care of. So the entire attachment comes to our own body only, to some degrees to parents or something. So then the grastha's attachment is divided into wife, children, job, car, parents, relatives. Wow, brahmachari, nothing. Body, 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 and my body only. So that's why the focus on the body can increase if one is not very highly inspired to render dedicated service to the Lord. That's why brahmachari should be very careful to take some service and do it to the best extent possible. He had to take responsibility for the service to the similar extent the grastha takes responsibility for his wife and children. Then a brahmachari is stable, otherwise not. A grastha, when they get a child and the child becomes sick in the night, they don't say, "Agle din ka japa kaise hoga? Jab so jao, kal dikhayenge." No, night only sometimes they have to admit the child. And sometimes the boss says, "Deadline aa gaya. Either you finish the product or your job will go." तो 3 रात को भी 2-2 बजे तक काम करता है, फिर भी 16 माला करता है ना दिन में. 16 माला तो करता है, is initiated. So we can actually, see some of our friends and all how much they're committed, and they never blame. But here, if some service comes where we have to extend or some two things are told at a time, then it becomes very difficult. मेरा साधना का क्या होगा, reading hearing का क्या होगा, मेरा health का क्या होगा. But what about grasthas? If you see them for their job, for their wife, for their child, how much extension they do? बिजली का बिल अब तो खैर ऑनलाइन हो जाता है बहुत सारी चीजें, but still गाड़ी खराब हो गई तो गाड़ी को रिपेयर के लिए डालना है. I mean, maintenance is there, na? There are no maintenance manager there. Here for everything we have person. किचन का काम हमारा नहीं, हमको क्या पता सब्जी का क्या रेट है, मिला कि नहीं मिला, मार्केट कब बंद हो रहा है, वो प्लेट लेके जाना है और प्रसाद चाहिए. 4:30 बजे प्रसाद रहेगा, इतना गारंटी है. बट गृहस्था का ऐसा नहीं है. वो सब्जी आएगा तो माता जी काटेगी तो सब्जी बनेगा या वही काटेगा जो भी. It's a very involved life. So if we are not absorbed to the same degree in serving Krishna and taking responsibility for our services, which is actually like our wife and child, then it will be difficult. Then mind will still crave for something. But Grasta Ashram is very heavy responsibility, and you can't avoid them. There's no shortcut, there's no bypassing. So in Brahmacharya life, we have to commit to the same degree. Because we will not suffer in the body more than it is destined for us, whichever ashram we live in. Whichever ashram we live in, our quota of suffering and happiness doesn't change. That is why one should do the needful intelligently. Not that unnecessarily we wake up till 12 o'clock just to talk with some person what happened 2 years back. That's not the point. Point is when there's a very definite service required for Guru and Krishna, then one should make that spirit of sacrifice. And one should judge it by intelligence. Many times our rounds are remaining. Somebody comes to talk, we talk. And then the rounds, what are supposed to be chanted in morning, they go to afternoon, afternoon to evening. And if some service comes, we always feel our mind feels like, Baba, service but if somebody comes to in Prasadam hall, we are taking Prasad and we want to take Prasad in 10 minutes and then chant. Sometimes we sit for half an hour, 45 minutes. So one should be very careful that the mind cheats us in that way. Right? So one should be very careful that one should not waste time, and rather one should be willing to sacrifice when there is a proper need. A proper bona fide request is coming, one should extend whatever degree it requires. Body will not suffer more than what it destined. Be sure of that. Because as brahmachari, sometimes we are more concerned. At the same time, we should not be on the other side that without any cause, we just sleep at 12 o'clock and do all this kind of, irregulated schedules. So I'm talking of a balance, that one should know the need of the hour, know the need of the time, and then do it. On one's own, one should not do it without a proper, instruction. And when the proper order comes, one should not neglect it. So that way, if a brahmachari does it, then he'll be very safe. You see, brahmachari life or grasta life, the soul has the same need. So soul needs emotional identification, emotional support, care, that feeling of thing. So brahmachari ashram has certain characteristic. Grasta ashram has certain characteristic. In grasta ashram, that emotion takes the form of a woman, and it is very perceivable, very observable, very, very relatable. But as brahmachari has to be a little subtler, because the whole process is subtler for a brahmachari. So he has to experience that care in the presence of the spiritual master, through the presence of the deities, through the presence of the devotees. It's a little different than what the common man can experience in the world, because wife and children ka sabko idea hai. But actually, a brahmachari also is living a family life. So there's nothing that there's another family life required. But if somehow or other, by his level of advancement or consciousness, if he's not able to relate with the family life in ashram, then he needs a separate family life, a smaller family life where he can relate with that. If one cannot connect with the family life here, but there is a family life. We are living in ashram. We are not living in a jungle without any support or care. We are living in that. But if we are not able to identify with temple as our home, with devotee as our friends and relatives, with Radha and Krishna as our Lord and Master, with service as our kind of opportunity to sacrifice, then what happens? Then we need another setup where we can identify. ये wife है, इसका चिंता करना मेरा धर्म है, इसको डॉक्टर के पास लेके जाना है, इसको गोविंदा में खिलाना है, बच्चे को स्कूल में पढ़ाना है. They don't doubt about it. It just happens so naturally. I mean, I really surprised when brahmachari become grastas, the responsibility level अपने आप बढ़ जाता है. अपने बढ़ जाता है. कोई argument नहीं होता है, क्योंकि वो somehow that is imprinted in the mind from the very childhood. They have seen their parent doing it, they do it. But brahmachari setting is different. But the soul by nature lives in family life. Impersonalists try to make soul like impersonal and merge. That's why they can't handle the variety of which the soul experiences. But a devotee, you understand that ultimate life is family life. It's not renounced life. We renounce material life, material family life, to experience a spiritual family life. It is not without family. We have a family here. Who can say it is not a family? There's a family, no? There's a family. There's somebody whom we are staying, somebody who asks us something, somebody who tells something. है ना? कोई ऊपर है, कोई नीचे है, कोई छोटा है, कोई बड़ा है, कोई जो भी है, बड़ा family है. So one who cannot relate with the family life here, then he needs another family, which is nothing wrong with that, if that is what the need of there. But it's possible by somehow trying to experience the family life here. And what is the crux of family life? Family life crux is not enjoyment. The crux of family life is sacrifice. It's not about enjoying. One who thinks he's enjoying family life, he will suffer more. The crux of family life is responsibility and sacrifice. If a brahmachari does it, then he can feel very stable in ashram life also. So this was Kardam Muni. He was gem-like. Saying that the monarch had come to his hermitage and was bowing before him, the sage greeted him with benediction and received him with due honor. So this is a very exemplary meeting between a Kshatriya and a Vaishnava, a very greatly exalted personality like Kardam Muni, the Brahmana, Vaishnava, and a great king like Swambhu Manu, the first emperor, the monarch. And not just emperor, he's Manu. He rules over 71 Divyagas. Very great personality. But the Western dealings are all centered around humility and Amanina Manadina, which can be perceived here. Both Swambhu Manu and Kardam Muni, one is Manu, one is Muni. So Manu and Muni. So both are taking a humble role and both are appreciating the contribution of others. They're not comparing, my sacrifice karta hu, tum kya sacrifice karta hai. When material consciousness comes in, then one focuses on the shortcoming of others, faults of others, and one's own glory. That is material consciousness. When a spiritual consciousness prevails, then one sees one's own limitation, others' glories. So there are examples of father-in-law and son-in-law also. There is example of sage and kings also when the dealings have been very different. Can you give an example where the sage and the king they behave differently? They criticized or anything like that. Shukracharya and the king. The king was afraid that Shukracharya will curse him, and Shukracharya was very upset that the king's daughter has offended his daughter. And they went in Sarmishta, they told also, you people, you are like the dogs at our house, Sarmishta told, because the Brahmanas are always like, begging, Bhavati Bhikshamde, you are like dogs the street. And then Devyani says, you people are like the crows who come and eat the butter from there. So like that, there has been criticism also. And similarly, father-in-law, son-in-law, sometimes there's a disrespect. The classical example is Daksha and Shiva. Shiva is maybe a Vaishnava and Daksha is Kshatriya, but then Daksha has another idea about that. Daksha felt I'm superior to Shiva. And Shiva was, of course, totally transcendental. So the dealings are based on the consciousness in any relationship. So here there's an ideal classical example of how Kardam Muni is greatly, wholeheartedly appreciating Swambhu Manu for his service of protecting the Brahmanas on behalf of the Lord. And in return, Swambhu Manu doesn't say, yeah, you have understood, so well done. So no, Swambhu Manu is appreciating Kardam Muni, that will come tomorrow. So here there's the last section. Emperor Swambhu Manu not only approached the cottage of dried leaves purchased by hermit Kardam, but also offered respectful obeisances unto him. So it's a big thing. He did not consider his kingly order. Not like that. He says it's Kardam Muni, so he paid obeisances to him. And duty of the hermit to offer blessing to the king. So it was his part as a service to offer blessings on behalf of the Lord, and he did that. After receiving the sage's attention, the king sat down and was silent. Recalling the instruction of the Lord, Kardama then spoke to the king as follows, delighting him with his sweet accents. So, yeah. So then, the king bowed down, and the Kardamuni actually did not allow him to bow down. Kardamuni embraced him. This mentioned Vaishnava Thakur. And Kardamuni made him sit on whatever seat he has. I mean, Brahmana, not like there was a royal couch. The furniture world, there is a big furniture sofa set lying there, nothing like that. Or maybe there was an asana or whatever. That is that. And the king was silent. So then Kardamuni from his side, because he's the host, he started delighting him with his sweet accent. What did he say? The tour you have undertaken, O Lord, is surely intended to protect the virtuous and kill the demons, since you embody the protecting energy of Sri Hari. So again, the glorification goes in terms of connection with the Supreme Lord. So everyone will do the same thing. The Brahmanas are like the head or the heart of the Lord, and we are like arms of the Lord. So the glorification not in terms of, like the camel and the ass. The ass is saying, Aho Rupam, what a beauty, what a beauty. And what is the camel saying? What is sound called? Aho Rupam, Aho Rupam. Then the camel says, what is sound called? Aho.
Aho Dhwani.
Aho Dhwani. Aho Dhwani. What a beautiful sound. It's not like that. They are doing glorification in connection with the Supreme Lord. So kings used to tour to give protection to the pious citizen and kill the empires, and they will also practice hunting if required, to kill the undesirable people. Asatam. So Lord's purpose is Pratyaranam Sadhunam Vinashya Dushkritam, and the potency, therefore, to give protection to pious and kill the demon is directly an energy of the Supreme Lord. And the chief or the king is supposed to possess such energy. But very difficult to find such person in modern times. Modern heads of state sit very nicely in their palaces and try without reason to kill innocent persons. So modern things are different. And then he says further uh, that you, because you know, all the demigods reside in the body of the king. Nara Deva is called, Naradeva. So when necessary, you take the part of the sun god to enlighten, the moon god, Agni, the god of fire, Indra, lord of paradise, Vayu, the wind god, Yama, Dharma, Varuna. So then all obeisances unto you were none other than Lord Vishnu. He is the representative of Lord Vishnu for administrative purposes. So Kardam was a Brahmana, Swambhu was a Kshatriya. The sage was not supposed to offer obeisances to the king because socially his position was greater than the king. But he offered his obeisances to Swambhu Manu because as Manu, king and emperor, he was a representative of the Supreme Lord. So Supreme Lord is always worshipable regardless of one is a Brahmana, Kshatriya or Shudra. So as representative of the Supreme Lord, the king deserved respectful obeisances from everyone. So basically in Vedic time, people look for their duties, not for their rights. They don't emphasize their rights, they emphasize their duties. So Brahmana Kardamuni thought it's my duty. He's the emperor. So it's my duty to offer obeisances because he's representing the Supreme Lord. He didn't say, मैं भी ब्राह्मण हूँ ना. लॉर्ड ने बोला है ब्राह्मणस आर हिज फेस. वो सुना नहीं अभी पहले का सेक्शन में भगवान ने क्या बोला चार कुमारों को, you know, how much he respect the brahmana. Recording play करता हूँ. It's not like that. Person used to choose a position where he can accept a humble position and give credit to others, give glory to others, give respect to others. You never look out for situation from a perspective where he deserves respect and others don't deserve. That was the mindset. So that is why he offered obeisances. Then he further glorified him. If you did not mount your victorious jeweled chariot, whose mere presence threatens culprits, if you did not produce fear sounds by the twanging of your bow, and if you did not roam about the world like brilliant sun, leading a huge army whose trampling feet caused the globe of the earth to tremble, and all the moral laws governing the varnas and ashram created by the Lord himself would be broken by the rogues and rascals. So, apart from making the law, it takes people to implement the law. Just like signals, you know, signals are put, but unless there is a policeman there, nobody follows the signal. Even if there are cameras and all, nobody bothers. Jab aayega, fine aa jayega. Right? So even after making a law, somebody has to implement the law. So Lord makes the laws, you know, that dharmo, vedo pranihitam dharma, right? The Yamadutas are telling that dharma is given in the Vedas. Vedas are given by the Supreme Lord. And the Supreme Lord has defined what Brahmanas should do, what Kshatriyas should do, what the different sections should do. But who will ensure whether they're doing or not? And if they're not doing, who will punish them if they're not doing that? That is the role of emperor. That's the role of the king. The duty of a responsible king to protect the social and spiritual order. And for want of proper protection by responsible king, the system of social and spiritual order has now become a hereditary caste system. But this is not the actual system. Human society means that society which is making progress toward spiritual realization. So the question, which society is advancing? Advancement does not mean creating material necessities unnecessarily. It's a very beautiful thing. Huh? Material necessities unnecessarily. So-called necessity, that's very correct. And thus wasting human energy in aggravation over so-called material comfort. Real advancement is advancement toward spiritual realization, and the community which acted towards this end was known as Aryan civilization. And then he further says that duty of the king to travel all over the country and see that everything is in order. And this Varnashram Dharma has now degraded into caste system. But this is designed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Here it says, and Chaturvarna Maya system. So anything created by the Lord cannot be closed or covered. Very interesting point. Prabhupada says the divisions of Varna Ashram will continue to exist either in their original form as created by the Lord or in degraded form because they are created by the Lord. They cannot be annihilated. They cannot be extinguished. They are like the sun, a creation of God, and therefore will remain. Either covered by clouds or in clear sky, the sun will continue to exist. So Varnashram Dharma means 4 different classes they remain. And they may be identified as Brahman Kshatriya or they may be called by different name, but they remain. And when there is hatred and malpractice, mutual distrust, the whole system becomes degraded. But nevertheless, it still exists. So this is the condition for that. And then he finally says, if you gave up all thought of the world situation, unrighteousness would flourish. For man who anchor only after money would be unopposed. Such miscreant would attack and the world would perish. So he is telling that if you don't do your duty, what will happen? So he's glorifying him. This is one way of saying that you are doing things nicely. That's why these things are not happening. If you will not do that, then these all things will happen. So because scientific division is now being extinguished, the entire world is being governed by unwanted man who have no training in religion, politics, or social order. So there are regular training principle for the different classes of man in the regular Varnashram system. So just in modern age, there is a necessity for engineer, medical practitioner, electrician, and they are trained in different institutions. Similarly, in former times, the higher social orders were properly trained and the duties were enumerated by Bhagavad Gita. When there is no such training, one simply claims that because he is born in a Brahmana or Kshatriya family, he is therefore a Brahmana or Kshatriya, even though he performs the duties of a Shudra. So society is now in chaos. There is neither peace nor prosperity. So this is because the social system, the kings are not very strong. So now this is the last verse. It says, in spite of all this, Athapi Prache Tvam Veer, I am asking you, valiant king, Yat Artham Tvam Iha Agata, why you have come here? What is the purpose of coming here? Tat Vayam Nirvelikena. Please tell me without reservation. Pratit Padyamane, with our heart and soul, we will carry it out. So, in spite of all this, I've told in general you roam around so that you can curb the miscreant, you can protect the pious people, and you can see that the Varnashram Dharma is followed nicely. So that is all right, and that you have been doing. But in spite of all this, I ask you the purpose for which you have come here. Whatever it may be, we shall carry it out without reservation. So, purposely, when a guest comes to a friend's house, it is understood that there is some special purpose. So Karda Muni could understand that such a great king as Swambhu Manu, although traveling to inspect the condition of his kingdom, must have had some special purpose to come to his heritage. Thus, he prepared himself to fulfill the king's desire. See, the mood of servant he took up. Whatever it may be, we shall carry it out without reservation. He don't say, "Tum order karega." Like Shringi was saying, na? These kings are like at the dogs at the door, and now they are having the dareness to come inside and want to dine with the master. This is the word he spoke, Shringi. So that is the wrong mood. Bhagavatam gives both the right mood. And here he's saying, whatever it may be, we shall carry it out without reservation. Hriday, with heartfelt eagerness, will fulfill it. Thus he prepared himself to fulfill the king's desire. Formerly, it was customary that the sages used to go to the kings and kings used to visit the sages in their hermitages. Each was glad to fulfill the other's purpose. Like Vishwamitra Muni came to meet Maharaj Dashrath. Maharaj Dashrath immediately offered his own throne. Narad Muni will come to meet Maharaj Yudhishthira. Maharaj Yudhishthira will be happy to carry out the order. Right? Chitraketu Maharaj, when who came? Angira Muni came. Angira Muni came immediately. He was ready to fulfill. This reciprocal relationship is called Bhakti Karya. Right? This is called Bhakti Karya. There is a nice word describing the relationship, mutual beneficial interest between the Brahmana and Kshatriya. Kshatram Dujatvam. Kshatram means the royal order, Dujatvam means the Brahminical order. The two were meant for mutual interest. The royal order would give protection to the Brahmanas for the cultivation of spiritual advancement in society, and the Brahmanas would give their valuable instruction to the royal order on how the state and citizen can gradually be elevated in spiritual perfection. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport through the third canto, 21st chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Conversation between Manu and Kardama. Tomorrow we will participate in the marriage ceremony of Kardamuni and Devahuti. After Brahma will come, Brahma will live with the four Kumaras. But in Bhagavatam it comes, so we can't avoid. Brahmaji Prabhupada writes in the purport, because Brahmaji is not supposed to participate in the marriage, that's why Brahmaji and the four Kumaras left. So, nevertheless, by participating in this marriage, you will become purified. Okay. So today we stop here. Any comments or questions or feedback is welcome now for a few minutes. Long chapters. You came from Tirupati, yeah? Yesterday you were online. You came. I'm blessed by your presence. Yes, anything online, offline?
This four categories, Artha, Artha, Jnani, Jigyasu, all are Sakam. So
Yeah, Sakam.
Jnani is also considered as a
Prabhupada, I mean, in the later verse, next verse, he says that among them, Gyani is most dear to me. So, if the Gyani is aspiring for knowledge, then he also has some desire to gain knowledge. None of them is aspiring to please the Lord immediately and directly. Right? But Gyani is best because as soon as he comes in contact with the devotee, he understands, oh, Krishna is the Lord and Master, we should please. And immediately he picks up. But in the initial stage, till the time they come in the association of devotees and understand the practice, till the time they are aspiring for knowledge, janna chahte, what exactly it is, how it functions and like that. So they are not aspiring to please the Lord at that moment. But they develop the desire very easily, very quickly because they don't have other desires. On the other hand, artho, artharthi, they take longer time because they have to go through that experience of getting it, and then Lord has to make a plan. He gives them, then withdraws it, then Harishya tadhanam shane, then he comes back. But Gyani already like he knows it, but he is not yet kind of aware of the personality of the Lord and his and personal relationship with the Lord. So when he comes in contact with the devotee, then immediately he picks up. Because no material desire at that time. He's like a 0%. And negative, it takes time. He's zero. That. Okay. Final comments, Keshan Prabhu?
Thank you so much, Prabhu, for explaining the family culture that you are talking about in ashram as well as in Grihastha ashram. Yeah, that's the Prabhupada also mentions that in NY that life of Krishna conscious society is nourished by these 6 loving exchanges in NY 4th verse. So definitely it's a root of a family, either in ashram or either in a family. But I want to know more about this, how we nourish in terms of practical, especially in ashram. Definitely everybody wants to be like that of culture. Like though we are spending a lot of many years in ashram, that feeling of like a brothers, sacrificing like for a brother or sacrificing or extending, that kind of relation we don't feel much. So could you please comment on that?
It's simple. Prabhupada says that people want universal brotherhood without universal fatherhood. So if we have to have universal brotherhood, there has to be universal fatherhood. So similarly, to experience close relationship with devotees, we have to have a close relationship with Krishna. So oftentimes, because of not working on our Shraddha, not working on our relationship with Krishna, so our impersonated tendencies, our karma tendencies, desiring for the result of our action or speculative knowledge, desiring to become expert in something, that bhakti mukti siddhi, these things we still desire. So we don't become nishkam bhaktas, we become bhakti kamis. We want to enjoy something of our service. Mukti kamis, we want to get freed from the pain and difficulties which come in our life. And siddhi kamis, we want to be very expert in some things, and impress people. So bhakti mukti siddhi kami, then sakale ashant, then we are disturbed. And we have not yet come to a level where we serve the Lord for his pleasure. So because of this situation, then we cannot develop relationship with the devotees very intimately. Our relationships are also like abhas. They are also kind of not deep. Sometimes the quarrel happen and then we get separated because we are seeing each other at a material level, not in connection with the Lord. That is why for a Madhyamatikari it says, Ishware tad adhineshu. That first he says, Ishware tad adhineshu. What is that?
Balisheshu. Balisheshu
Balisheshu Dusasuja. Prem Maitri Kripa Upeksha. So Ishwareshu Prem. Tad Adhisheshu Maitri. So only when there's Prem for Ishwareshu, then Tad Adhineshu. Then one sees that, okay, the same Lord whom I love, this devotee is connected to the same Lord. That's why I should have friendship with him. So our relationship with Lord has a connection with our relationship with the devotees. The depth of our relationship with devotees directly in proportion how much we can connect with the Lord. So both happen simultaneously. But while living in a community, as we live, just like in a material family, although we say that wife is property of Guru and Krishna, but still there's a lot of material identification with wife and children. So similarly, even at one level, we say that, okay, this is where we live, this temple is ours, and the service is ours. Even if there is some kind of material tinge in that, still it will help us to advance gradually. So the thing is that before love comes, the duty is very, very important. So once we take our duty aspect very seriously, then that is just the step below love, because there's fear, desire, duty, and love. So duty, if we follow, then we will be stable. Okay, whether I mean, as a matter of duty, I start doing things, and then gradually Krishna reveals love also. So one should be very, eager, and one should be very enthusiastic in understanding how to make a very living connection with the Supreme Lord. That doesn't require, and that doesn't mean that one has to become purified and come to bhava or prema. There is a certain degree of connection with the Lord which one feels from day one, and one should cultivate that. Like Prabhupada says, as childhood, as children also praying to Lord that please make our kite fly. And here in these verses we find that Prabhupada is saying that even if somebody is material desire, he should still go to the Lord so that he feels connected to the Lord. So like that, by our devotion service and by praying to the Lord, by glorifying Him, by singing for His pleasure, one should establish a connection with the Lord. And then when that connection is there, then the devotee is seen in that connection that, okay, he is also serving the same Lord as I am serving. So I should be serving. Otherwise, our service and friendship is more on the matter of like-mindedness or likeliness, which is also okay. But the real foundation is Ishwareshu Tad Adhineshu. Tad Adhineshu. They are servant of that Lord whom I love. So as we become intense in our sadhana and as we make progress in our connection with the Lord, to that degree, our relationship with the devotees also increase. In material life, what happens is whether we see our wife and children as spiritual or not, the social obligation and the mind is so conditioned that still it takes a high degree of responsibility. While the same thing does not become possible in ashram, brahmacharya ashram so easily. So that material level of identification process is very stressed. So what we should do, okay, I may not have love or whatever, but at least as a duty, I will take kind of care from my part to participate. And as you mentioned, that the 6 loving exchanges we do, we read and hear with devotees, that we, give prasadam, honor prasadam, sit with them. So then that also helps as we do, especially hearing and chanting with devotees, that brings us to a higher level of understanding rather than just being materially related. So Gyamakati Prachati is the core of all the 6 processes. So we do that, and gradually, as we keep on reading and hearing together, we keep on sharing together, then we start feeling more intimacy than otherwise. When you don't interact and don't read here together, it's difficult to feel that. So that is something we can do practically.
Thank you.
Okay.
One more thing I wanted to check from yesterday's lesson chapter.
Yeah.
Though Brahmaji was going through so many obstacles, so many unexpected challenges in his service.
Yeah.
So practically, so many things are coming in between. But still, he was very much inspired and encouraged or determined to continue his service.
Yeah.
So, what exactly is inspiring him, or what inspires us? What is your experience in your life? So, I want to know about continuing service, our service in spite of all unexpected challenges and obstacles.
In the third canto, I believe third canto, you find that when Brahmaji performed tapasya before creation, then Lord appeared and Lord shook hand and Lord blessed him that you will not get affected by the creation, your intelligence will not get covered over by that. So Brahmaji, by dint of his sadhana, had experienced a connection with the Lord. And that is why when these demons attacked him, immediately went to the Lord in his mind. He, mentally remembered the Lord and prayed, and Lord also guided him from within. So he was very closely seeing that all that I'm doing is on behalf of the Lord. He did not consider himself as a doer. So as an instrument, he remembered who is doing through me. So this consciousness that I'm an instrument and who is doing, that consciousness, that connection keeps us more enthusiastic than on our own when we try to do something. So Brahmaji was very clear that I'm an instrument and the Supreme Lord is doing. He had that experience. And it is said also, the Supreme Lord from within gave him the intelligence to recreate everything as it was before. So he had a very deep connection with the Lord within. So for us, a connection with our spiritual master or a senior devotee with whom we guide and take guidance and consultance, and so that helps. to remain enthusiastic in spite of all odds. Prabhupada remained enthusiastic in all circumstances because he understood this is my service to my spiritual master. He ordered me to do this, I'm trying to do that. And so many challenges came. In ISKCON, everything what we are facing today has already been faced in the times of Prabhupada. Nothing is new. No case is new. Absolutely nothing is new. It may be just we don't know it. But every question what people are asking today, every situation what we may be facing today, everything is practically at a principle level has been dealt with in Prabhupada times. Prabhupada time there were Sahajiyas, they had the Gopi Bhav Club. Prabhupada time the people sold temples and used up the money. People, Prabhupada times people divorced and they got married here and there. There were so many things. I don't think there's anything happening in ISKCON which has not happened in past. It's the same repetition. Like, so how Prabhupada dealt with them? Because he said, okay, this is my service to my Guru Maharaj and I'll continue with that. So not making our happiness as the center and not considering things help us to actually remain perpetually enthusiastic in whatever we are doing, in spite of all the challenges which will come. And Brahmaji is facing challenges in the beginning of creation. That means the creation is born of challenges, so it will always be there for everyone at all times, whether devotee or anyone else. It's all there. But how Brahmaji went through it, the same way. Don't consider ourselves as the enjoyer. Lord is the enjoyer, and don't consider ourselves as a doer. We are instruments in that. That helps. Okay.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Okay, thank you very much. You stop here. Tomorrow we will celebrate the marriage of Kardam Muni and Devhuti. You all are invited for that. Hare Krishna. Grantha Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Day after tomorrow will be honeymoon.